I fear for my kids and everybody else's kids." Jim Sparks did not say that after a nightmare. He said it after decades of being taken from his bed, paralyzed on a freezing table, and used like genetic livestock by something that does not see us as people. Tonight, we are not asking if alien abductions are real. We are asking a harder question. What if the most terrifying part is that they see themselves as the caretakers, and we are the failing herd? Jim Sparks survived decades of this. Most abductees talk about fragments, flashes of light, missing time, pieces of memory that feel like dreams. Jim was different. He claimed to be 95% consciously aware during his encounters. For him, the abductions were not hazy nightmares he could dismiss afterward. They were events he was forced to live through, awake, trapped again and again. That awareness was not a gift, it was a curse. He began like anyone else, a regular guy from a regular town, worrying about bills, work, and the future. But at night, when the world went quiet and soft, another reality opened around him. It always began with the cold. He felt the entities before he saw them, a chill that did not stop at the skin but slid straight into the bones. It was not a draft or the bite of winter air. It was a deep, invasive cold that made his skeleton feel hollow and his blood thick, as if his body was being prepared for something he did not want to understand. Then the Greys appeared. Jim never described them like the cartoon images on t-shirts. They were not goofy little green men. They were small and slender, but disturbingly fragile, like porcelain figures that should shatter with one touch, except they did not. They could restrain a grown man without effort. Their arms were thin, and their long fingers moved with surgical precision, every gesture controlled and efficient. They did not walk, they glided. Every movement was frictionless and stripped of human rhythm, no sway of the shoulders, no shift of weight, no wasted motion. They slid across the room as if the floor was optional and gravity was only a suggestion. Watching them felt like watching an animation that did not match the physics of the rest of the world. Your eyes could follow it, but your brain kept rejecting it. For Jim, leaving his home felt like disintegration. His body did not hurt, it simply stopped feeling like a body. His nerves went silent as if someone had thrown a hidden switch. 1 second, there was a bedroom, night air, and the distant sound of the highway. The next second, nothing felt familiar. The house, the neighborhood, even the idea of home turned thin and false, peeling away like a stage backdrop. The final surge before arrival was worse than physical pain. He felt as if something was scooping up his sense of self and stretching it across an invisible distance, thinning it out until it almost snapped. In that instant, he understood that whatever held him had total control. For these beings, time and space were not barriers. They were materials. Jim would awaken on the table. The cold there was different, predatory. It did not just make him shiver. It seemed to drain heat out of his organs, as if the room itself was feeding on his warmth. His body felt like an object someone had left in a freezer and forgotten. The room around him was built for dread. The walls were smooth and seamless, glowing softly with no visible light source. No lamps, no panels, no shadows. Perspective never felt stable, as if the space shifted just outside his line of sight. There were no corners, no familiar edges his mind could grab onto. It felt less like a room and more like the inside of an idea. Waiting in that impossible chamber were those he would come to call the keepers. Not just aliens. Keepers, as if humanity were livestock and they were the handlers. Their skin was pale and nearly translucent, stretched tight over thin bird-like bones. They looked fragile, but when they touched him, their grip was absolute. They were walking contradictions, frail yet overpowering, small yet dominating, silent yet deafening inside his mind. And then there were their eyes. They were not just big and black. They were polished voids, wet and glassy, reflecting warped versions of the room and of Jim himself. Looking into them was not like meeting a gaze. It was like staring down a bottomless shaft. There was no recognition, no sympathy, no emotion of any kind that he could relate to anything human. They were alive, but they felt like tools. The air shook with a low subsonic vibration, the pulse of the craft. It was not loud, but Jim felt it in his chest, his stomach, along his spine. It made his insides buzz as if the sound had been tuned to him. He lay pinned between the frozen table and the indifferent machinery above, caught in a geometry that did not care whether he lived or died. The procedures were clinical and efficient, soaked in a kind of terror that went beyond pain. The scanning did not feel like a medical test. It felt like a break-in. Jim felt an intelligence pushing through him, rifling through his thoughts, memories, fears, and secrets the way someone might sort through files on a stolen hard drive. His mind did not feel like his own. Instruments appeared around him, thin needle-like devices glowing with a faint, unsettling light. They were not hanging from arms or cables. They simply appeared, as if wanting them there was enough. Jim stayed conscious as the keepers removed what he believed was his most fundamental biological material. His reproductive capacity, his genetic future, reduced to samples taken with calm precision. There was no anger in their movements, no hatred, no thrill. That was the worst part. This was not torture. Torture requires emotion, rage, cruelty, or the desire to dominate. What they did to him did not need any of that. It was colder than hate. It was farming. His body was not being punished. It was being used, treated as a resource, a tank of raw material that a program could tap again and again as long as the unit stayed alive and functional. Whether he screamed, begged, or prayed did not matter. His reactions meant nothing. In that realization, Jim's life split in two. He was no longer just a man on Earth. He was a genetic asset, a slave. The last phase of each encounter was what he called the steering procedure, a telepathic attack that made the physical violations feel almost simple. When one of the Greys fixed its eyes on him, the room fell away. No walls, no table, no ship, only pressure, a brutal expansion behind his temples, as if invisible hands were pushing his skull outward from the inside. Information did not drift into his mind, it slammed in. Jim described it as a high-speed torrent, a flood of images, symbols, emotions, and concepts forced into his awareness all at once. There was no time to filter, no option to look away. His own thoughts were pushed to the edges to make room. In those flashes, he saw Earth dying. He saw skies thick with toxins, oceans drained of life, forests reduced to black stumps. He saw cities failing under their own weight, not because of dramatic alien attacks, but because of neglect, greed, and decay. Humanity was not being conquered on a battlefield. It was wearing itself out. He also saw them, hybrids, beings that looked almost human, but not quite. Children with pale skin, enormous dark eyes, and unnaturally calm faces. Too quiet, too still. Riding buses, walking through crowds, sitting in classrooms, watching. Through it all, he felt one message pressed into his mind, not spoken, but etched there with absolute certainty. Your species is unfit. Your environment is now our primary concern. Later, when he tried to put it into simple human terms, Jim said that it was a high-speed torrent, a deluge of symbols and images, and that they did not ask him to understand. They forced him to know that humanity was unfit and that the planet had become their main concern. To him, that was the final horror. The beings who froze his body, scraped his genetics, and tore through his mind did not see themselves as invaders or monsters. They saw themselves as custodians, caretakers of a failing world, and we were the species they intended to manage. After years of Jim's clear, consistent testimony, the usual scientific explanations start to feel less like answers and more like defense mechanisms. Skeptics often reach first for sleep paralysis. Psychologists Susan Clancy and others say abductions come from a REM glitch. The brain wakes up, the body stays frozen, you sense a presence, feel a weight on your chest, panic, and in a culture full of UFOs, your mind fills the gap with grays and ships. It is tidy and comforting. But sleep paralysis is brief and chaotic. Jim's encounters were structured, repeated over decades, with detailed ship layouts, roles, and procedures. Calling that a simple brain spasm feels more like emotional protection than serious science. The God helmet offers another answer. Dr. Death Michael Persinger showed that magnetic stimulation of the temporal lobes can create a feeling of a presence. Yet to use this as a full explanation, you must believe thousands of unrelated people are somehow generating almost the same story. The same grays, rooms, harvesting, hybrids. The question is not whether Jim Sparks is crazy. The question is much worse. When the paralysis hits you one night, when the air trembles, when the room starts to bend and your body refuses to move, will you tell yourself it was just a dream, or will you realize you were never alone in that room at all? If you have ever felt that presence at the edge of your bed, if you have ever woken up frozen with a weight on your chest, I want to hear from you in the comments. Tell me honestly, was it sleep paralysis, psychology, or something else watching you in the dark? If this story unsettled you, make sure you like this video so it reaches more people, subscribe and turn on the bell so you do not miss the next case, and share it with someone who always says, "I do not believe in aliens," and see if they still sleep as well tonight. Because if Jim Sparks is telling the truth, this is not just his story. It might be a warning meant for you. Your DNA is not your own and your memories are a lie. Tonight we expose the shocking truth behind the hybridization agenda. Camille, a woman whose life was irrevocably altered by non-human intelligence, is a reluctant witness. Her testimony suggests the UFO experience is not random, but part of a cold, calculated, multi-generational genetic agenda. This program, which we define as the hybridization agenda, the systematic, hidden genetic engineering and creation of a new species using the human genome, is far closer than most realize. As Camille herself states, "It didn't change my life, it became my life." We will now examine the two key encounters that defined her ordeal. Camille's earliest memories were not of innocence, but of disorientation and profound loss. Her trauma began with seemingly innocuous events that later became anchors of her ordeal. She recalls invisible visitations, an unseen, two-legged entity jumping onto her chest in the middle of the night. These were precursors to the major trauma. One of her core memories is waking up on a beach in the dead of night, miles from home, wearing only her underwear. Her father, finding her missing, had to unlock a series of deadbolts she physically could not manipulate. For years, she buried this event as a nightmare or sleepwalking incident. It wasn't until therapy with hypnotherapist Barbara Lamb that the truth was uncovered. They had placed her there. She was an object of study, returned to her environment once the clinical process was complete. This realization fractured her perception of reality, plunging her into a lifelong obsession. The trauma was compounded by missing time. Around age 8, Camille experienced the telltale signs, hearing a high-pitched frequency, walking down her hallway, and then nothing. Hours later, she would be back in bed with zero recollection. This chronological scar drove her to seek answers, realizing her life was being manipulated and edited without her knowledge. Under deep hypnotic regression, the scope of her involvement in the hybridization agenda became clear. Camille describes an intense, cold light solidifying into a column of powerful blue energy. This non-physical slide pulled her upward, effortlessly penetrating solid matter. The phenomenon supports the interdimensional hypothesis. The beings are not traveling vast distances, but shifting dimensions, materializing and vanishing instantly. Aboard the craft, the environment was designed to disable the human mind. Camille describes a vast, white, seamless room devoid of corners or reference points. The light emanated from the walls themselves. This architectural deception induced disorientation and prevented spatial orientation. The beings were standard grays, tall, with pale, parchment-like skin stretched over disproportionately large heads. Their eyes were massive, black, insect-like orbs, devoid of iris or pupil. Camille stresses they were not malevolent, but non-empathetic, operating with cold clinical detachment. The central horror was the procedure itself. Camille was secured on a thin, cold table that molded to her body. A mechanical arm, ending in a polished gynecological instrument, harvested the fetus she was unaware she carried, a tiny walnut-sized life. This systematic collection of genetic material, specifically from the Rh-negative bloodline, is theorized as the seed of the human genetic experiment. Camille was a biological resource. As the procedure concluded, physical pain vanished, replaced by synthetic comfort. A mechanical voice implanted phrases in her psyche, the final one, "We are always sending you love." This post-hypnotic trigger neutralized trauma and ensured compliance, confirming a long-term, meticulously planned agenda. Years later, armed with the knowledge of her own engineering, Camille refused to remain a passive victim. She decided to engage directly, moving from an abductee to a participant, a process known as CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Camille traveled to a remote desert location, joining a group focused on conscious contact. She wasn't relying on chance, she was relying on frequency. She focused her intent not on fear, but on confrontation, using her decoded psychological trigger as a kind of reverse password. The pressure was immense. Camille waited, skeptical, nearly giving up. At a moment of psychological surrender, the response was immediate and physically violent. Crack! A concussive burst of sound directly overhead, snapping the desert silence. This was immediately followed by the spontaneous materialization of a dense, metallic gray mist. This sudden, physical rupture of the atmosphere proved the dimensional nature of their travel. From the mist, a sleek, white, V-shaped craft slid out, silently descending to a low altitude. This object was enormous, yet completely silent. The key detail, the one that validated her entire experience, was its anatomy. Underneath the wings, there were 3 translucent, amber spherical objects, 6 in total, resembling large fluid-filled suction cups. These were not lights. Camille testified that they glowed and pulsed in perfect rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. She was witnessing the visible heartbeat of a living machine. This craft was a fusion of organic biology and advanced technology, a biotech hybrid, the mechanical mirror of the genetic hybridization program taking place in the vats. The craft itself confirmed the agenda. The V-craft hovered for a brief, tense period, bathing Camille's location in a silent field of energy. It was observing, acknowledging the frequency of the summons. It wasn't engaging in dialogue, it was performing an ID confirmation. Having verified the source of the communication, the craft then shimmered, warped, and vanished instantly, folding out of our dimensional space. Camille's conscious call had been received, cataloged, and acknowledged by the system. She was now confirmed as an active carrier and a known entity within the protocol. Camille's encounters reveal the chilling truth of the agenda. The focus on the Rh-negative bloodline is key. It is their genetic antidote. The Greys, ancient and advanced, face terminal genetic collapse. Abductions are clinical attempts at self-preservation, using dimensional technology to access their vital resource. The program has shifted from harvesting to deployment. Hybrids, engineered for human compatibility and total compliance, are designed to infiltrate positions of power. The phrase, "we are always sending you love," is a sinister command frequency, ensuring engineered consent. The abduction phase is complete. The occupation phase is imminent. Camille's testimony closes the loop. The Greys are not invaders, but a desperate species reclaiming the planet they ceded millennia ago. Abductions cultivate the new ruling class. Camille is a living witness, and her story is our only defense. The question is existential. How will we respond to a silent genetic takeover? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe Camille's account is evidence of a desperate eugenics program or an elaborate psychological weapon? Like and subscribe for more deep dives into the unexplained. Listen, the wind is still, the dogs are restless, your cattle are uneasy. If you don't check now, it might be too late. On a cold, silent morning, a rancher found one of his cows lying alone in the back field. At first glance, it seemed routine, but the absence of tracks, disturbed soil, or nervous herd told another story. The air was heavy, the silence hollow, and a faint metallic smell lingered. At a glance, the cow appears mostly intact. No huge chunks are missing, no shredded flesh, no signs of a predator. But the head tells a different story. The jawline stripped of flesh in a neat, curved band, one eye socket perfectly empty, the ear gone as if removed with a single, precise motion. The openings are smooth, almost polished. He searches for blood. A cow carries gallons of it. Predators kill messily. Bullets or gut wounds leave puddles. Here there is none. No stains, no seepage, the hide dry, the exposed tissue strangely bloodless, emptied rather than opened. A veterinarian arrives. He has seen coyotes tear livestock, diseased waste animals, and bodies left in the sun. This is different. The cuts are smooth, the work of an instrument or an intelligence beyond human skill. Certain organs are gone, removed rather than torn. Capillaries look drained. Fractures in the legs and ribs suggest impact injuries, not simple collapse. And yet, the ground is flat. No sign of struggle, no evidence that anything could have moved the animal. If it was moved, how? A cow doesn't float, it doesn't teleport. And still, the body, the wounds, the empty space whisper the same impossible suggestion. It was taken, worked on, and returned, altered by some unseen hand. Word spreads quickly in the rural community. Another dead cow might have been ignored, but this one is different. The sheriff's department sends a deputy, the vet files his report, and soon an independent investigator arrives, someone who has spent years chasing patterns most would rather ignore. He has seen this scene before: bloodless carcasses, surgical cuts, empty ground. He isn't here to dismiss it. The three men walk the field. The deputy searches for human evidence: cigarette butts, footprints, tire tracks. He finds nothing. The vet looks for natural causes: disease, injury, and predators. The body yields no answers. The investigator searches for repetition, signature, the invisible fingerprints of an intelligence that leaves no trace. He asks questions that make the others uneasy: strange lights in the sky, humming noises at night, animals acting strangely. Stories emerge. The rancher admits the dogs were restless the night before, pacing and whining for no reason. A neighbor says she awoke at 2 a.m. to a soft white glow in her bedroom. Pulling back the curtain, she saw a round, silent light hovering over the fields. After a minute, it dimmed and vanished. Predators leave ragged wounds and tracks, not surgical precision or total bloodlessness. Humans, even the most careful, leave evidence: footprints, tire marks, but none exist here. This case matches others in different counties, states, and years. To blame humans requires believing in a secret operation with perfect stealth, advanced tools, and no explainable motive. Natural explanations fail. Fractures suggest a fall. Blood is completely absent, even when soil is tested. Certain organs are consistently missing and cuts are precise. Ranchers swear the animals were healthy hours before. Each normal explanation covers only one detail and collapses against the others. As night falls, the three men sense the same invisible wall. Something happened here that defies conventional reasoning. No tracks, no blood, only fleeting lights and eerie stillness. An intelligence acting with precision and disappearing without a trace. The investigator notes anomalies: flattened grass, disturbed soil, and quiet that feels alive. The event seems sudden, surgical, and observed from afar. The pattern repeats across time and distance, consistent and deliberate. It points not to nature, not to humans, but to something else entirely, something precise, deliberate, untraceable. By the night's end, reports are filed, notes added, but the mystery remains. The signature of the act, the precision, the lack of evidence, the recurring pattern, resists explanation. Only one conclusion seems to fit. An intelligence moves silently, strikes surgically, and vanishes, leaving the impossible for the world to puzzle over. At some point, usually when the recorder is off or the camera isn't rolling, someone finally says what nobody wants to admit. What if the animal wasn't killed here at all? What if it was taken? The idea feels absurd, especially in daylight, in front of adults with jobs and reputations. Yet the facts line up: broken bones like a fall, a bloodless body, surgical cuts, untouched ground. It makes the most physical sense, even if the least emotional sense. In the deep hours of the night, a silent light descends over the field. The cow is lifted, not dragged into the air. No marks, no struggle, no tracks. It is brought inside something, call it a craft, a machine, a lab, that doesn't care about our words for it. Inside, there is no ritual, no candles, no chance. There is a procedure: bright, harsh light, smooth, cold surfaces, instruments that cut tissue without tearing, remove organs without splashing, and extract blood completely. The animal is not a victim in a horror story. It is a specimen, a data point, a sample. When the procedure is finished, the body is returned, not placed gently, but dropped from a height, enough to fracture bones, not enough to scatter the carcass. Whatever life remained, if any, is gone. By sunrise, all that's left is a circle of untouched earth with a dead, altered animal at its center. The only signs of anything unnatural are the body itself and the rare stories of people who admit seeing something strange in the sky. If this had happened once, it could be dismissed as an anomaly, but it hasn't. Investigators who track these cases maintain maps most people never see. Pin boards and databases filled with mutilations from ranches across the country and beyond. Different owners, breeds, and landscapes, yet the same story. Bloodless carcasses, precise cuts, missing eyes and organs, no tracks. Years apart, states apart, yet eerily alike. The pattern doesn't look random. It looks systematic, like a program running quietly in the background of rural life, ignored by those unwilling to consider that the operating system might not be entirely human. Eventually, the mutilated cow is hauled away. The rancher still has to feed the rest of his herd. Bills still come. The world doesn't stop just because something impossible happened in a field. The sheriff files it as unexplained. The vet hides behind careful wording. The investigator adds one more pin to his map and drives off, knowing this exact scene has played out before, in another county, another year. Officially, nothing has been proven. Unofficially, nothing has been disproven either. But for the people who stood over that body, it never really ends. The rancher can't walk that patch of ground without seeing the clean circle of dirt and that empty socket where an eye should be. The neighbor who saw the hovering light now double-checks the sky before she closes her curtains. The investigator stares at his map at night and realizes the pattern doesn't look random anymore. Do you watch your herd closely at night? Comment below if you've ever seen something unexplainable. Every year the ice melts a little deeper, and with each lost layer, the thing buried beneath has one less secret left to hide behind. Dr. Lena Rostova stood over her Antarctic drill rig, driven by a singular, desperate obsession. Dismissed by academia, she believed the satellite imagery of the monstrous 600-meter Degtyarev hull, a metallic geometric anomaly scorned by science, was real. Accelerated melt had finally exposed the truth. After days of brutal labor, the drill struck an alloy of absurd density. The violent vibration confirmed it. Beneath the ice lay the Degtyarev hull, an immense, perfectly preserved non-terrestrial shell, dormant for millennia. Moments after the confirmation, Lena's team discovered the Waring anchor, a flat, triangular plate pulsating with a faint internal glow, half submerged in the meltwater. Before they could secure the artifact, V-22 Osprey aircraft descended, instantly seizing the site. Colonel Victor Kane, of the Military Intelligence Command, confiscates the anchor. Kane explained his presence. His covert unit, Project Polaris, had been monitoring the proliferation of dandelion probes biomimicking seeds radiating from the quadrant, whose increased activity signaled a critical, escalating threat. Recognizing Lena's expertise with the anchor's data structure, Kane forced her collaboration, used the anchor to breach the Degtyarev hull. Under Kane's armed guard, Lena used the Waring anchor as an electronic key. A massive section of the hull silently peeled back, revealing a ramp into a cavernous, non-Euclidean interior of crystalline and living metal structures. Lena was drawn to a central, luminous interface. The instant she made contact, the Degtyarev hull reacted. An invisible neutrino-form data pulse shot from the arc into the cosmos. At the command center, the alert went red. The Loeb object, a distant interstellar body, had abruptly changed its trajectory and was accelerating toward Earth. Lena's desperate gamble had violently succeeded. She had sent a signal, and the deep black had answered. The military established a temporary base inside the vast Degtyarev hull. Lena, now a captive resource, was consumed by guilt over the signal she sent. Decoding the ship's archives revealed the horrifying truth. The hull was not a warship, but an ark, a self-sustaining repository of genetic libraries and cultural memory from a vanished civilization. Crucially, Lena uncovered the foundational protocol, the warning of contagion. This was a desperate instruction. Do not engage this technology, or it will turn you into the very threat we escaped. Lena realized her activation pulse was a final, automatic warning that the forbidden technology had been breached, not an invitation. The revelation fueled the conflict with Colonel Kane. Kane, recognizing the technological leap the hull represented, dismissed Lena's ethical and historical findings. Contagion or not, Kane snapped, this is strategic parity. We will not be livestock observed by an advanced civilization. Find me the power source. We weaponize this ark before its owners get here. Lena, playing the role of the obedient technician, covertly sabotaged the data extraction, deliberately burying weapon schematics under layers of cultural archives and introducing subtle bugs into the military system to slow down their acquisition of critical defense blueprints. The hull itself began to violently resist its human occupants. Its awakened systems generated immense thermal output, fracturing the surrounding ice in unnatural geometric patterns. Massive subterranean rivers formed, destabilizing the base and cutting off all viable escape routes as the Antarctic environment turned hostile. The pressure from Kane was unrelenting. Skip the gen pools, Doctor. Give me the engine configuration. We need FTL data now, or we drown in the collapse you started. Lena maintained her facade, but her internal dread intensified. Then came the ultimate reversal, the decoded reply from the Loeb object. It wasn't a communication, it was a cold, mathematical edict. The message was explicit, a destruction edict. The approaching entity was not the savior of the creators. It was the final, ruthless enforcer, the cleaner, determined to eradicate all traces of the ancient civilization and its dangerous technology. Earth, the Ark's temporary resting place, was simply collateral damage. Following the destruction edict, the Loeb object launched its final asset, the Clean Slate, a specialized cleanup vessel designed solely to erase. The ship descended, ignoring all human radio calls. Kane's paranoia exploded into action. He ordered high explosive charges set in every critical junction of the hull. If we can't have it, no one will. Scorched earth. The hull's alloy was immensely resilient. The human explosives failed to inflict any critical structural damage. Outside, the natural collapse accelerated by the hull's internal heat reached its climax. The massive ice shelf fractured along ancient fault lines. With a thunderous planetary shriek, the Dektyarov hull was finally birthed from its icy tomb, revealing its full, colossal, terrifying scale above the ground. It was an unmistakable, defiant target, perfectly exposed for the Clean Slate, which was now less than minutes away from landing. The Clean Slate descended with frightening, almost silent precision, ignoring the remaining, scrambling military personnel. It immediately deployed specialized arms fitted with high-frequency energy drills, which penetrated the hull's shell effortlessly. The systematic, brutal sterilization began. Data archives vaporized, core systems dissolved at the structural level. Kane, driven mad by failure, initiated a final, desperate override on a secondary, non-essential power junction his team had installed, hoping to create a chain reaction. The small, localized explosion successfully ripped apart a nearby access ramp, but failed to damage the hull. Kane, caught in the backwash of the blast, was thrown across the wet metal deck and fell into the black, freezing water, vanishing without a trace. The base was annihilated, the military team obliterated. Lena was utterly alone, trapped near the Arc Core massive, violently pulsating energy nexus. The sterilization beams of the Clean Slate had cut off her only remaining escape route. The data was gone, the team was dead, and her curiosity had signed the death warrant of humanity. In the suffocating din of the Clean Slate's energy drills and the shriek of collapsing metal, Lena clung to her last, most complex piece of data, the source code of the wearing anchor. She realized the code was never meant for physical access. It contained an encoded directive, a galactic safety rule, the interdiction command. This was a systemic law designed to categorize structures as protected assets. Any compatible technology, like the Clean Slate or the Loeb object, was legally obligated to comply or risk being classified as a higher-level, self-violating threat. As the Clean Slate's primary drill hovered over the Arc Core, Lena saw the momentary flicker of doubt in the drone's programming, a half-second delay as it attempted to reconcile the ancient law with the new destruction edict. This was her infinitesimal window. Her desperate plan: rewrite the anchor's code to override the edict and implant the interdiction command at the highest priority level into the Arc Core, forcing the Clean Slate to switch targets from the hull to the Loeb object itself. Lena fought her way through the convulsing, compromised corridors, avoiding the energy pulses of the few Clean Slate sub-drones that had temporarily frozen due to the conflicting internal logic. She reached the Arc Core, a swirling vortex of crystalline energy. With absolute focus and a racing pulse, she jammed the modified Warring Anchor chip into the central nexus. The Arc Core flared, bathing the hull in a blinding, rainbow spectrum light. The interdiction command was successfully injected, propagating through the structure like a rapid-fire legal writ. Outside, the Clean Slate stopped mid-drill. Its aggressive red lights instantly shifted to a cold, analytical white. Its primary directive was overwritten. It categorized the Dektyarov hull as a protected asset. Its logic matrix calculated the source of the violation. The Loeb object, which had transmitted the destruction edict, was now the primary threat, a violation of its own laws. The Clean Slate immediately reconfigured. It fired a single, devastating, ultra-high-frequency data pulse electromagnetic burst directly into space, aimed at the retreating Lobe object. The signal was a galactic scarlet letter, designating the area near Earth a high-value kill zone for any of the Lobe fleet. Minutes later, the remaining, struggling human monitors confirmed the victory. The Lobe object registered the severe threat signature and executed an emergency superluminal jump, vanishing instantly from the solar system. Earth was saved, not by defiance, but by bureaucracy. The world got a sanitized geothermal accident story. The wreckage and the inert clean slate vanished into a classified bunker, and Dr. Lena Rostova vanished with them, becoming the sole trusted technical consultant for the hyper-secret agency. In the final, quiet moments, Lena monitors the systems. The clean slate, now in a passive, protective state, is subtly deploying its trademark dandelion probes into Earth's atmosphere and oceans. These are not seeds of destruction, but monitoring and defensive units. Lena, having modified the system, ensures they constantly broadcast the interdiction command across the solar system, weaving an invisible, high-priority shield around Earth. Lena is no longer a disgraced physicist, but the planet's clandestine gatekeeper. She has protected a world that remains blissfully ignorant of its salvation, bound forever to the silent, alien system she controls. The threat of the Lobe object is deferred, but the vigil has only just begun. Did the story of Lena Rostova and the Dektyarov ship give you goosebumps? Comment below what you would do if you were Lena. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exciting sci-fi mysteries. Welcome to the Void. Tonight, we're not just discussing a single witness sighting. We are diving into a case so rich in corroboration, so bizarre in its details, that it remains a cornerstone of ufology nearly 5 decades later. His name was Filiberto Cardenas, a Cuban immigrant living in Miami, Florida, in 1979. What happened to him on that quiet January night didn't just change his life. It revealed a terrifying, methodical depth to the alien presence on Earth. This is not a typical lights-in-the-sky story. This case has multiple independent eyewitnesses confirming the initial event. It involves an object left behind as physical evidence. Repeated hypnotic regression sessions across different specialists validated it. But most terrifyingly, Filiberto returned with 108 unexplained marks etched onto his body, and a vivid, consistent memory of a being on a golden throne, who spoke to him in perfect Spanish from a hidden subterranean base. Forget the cliches. This is the Cardenas abduction, and here's what the investigators uncovered. The date was late January 1979. Filiberto Cardenas was driving with 3 friends in a remote, quiet area outside Miami. They were engaged in a typical evening, unaware they were about to become unwilling participants in one of history's most documented close encounters of the 4th kind. Suddenly, the vehicle died, not gradually but instantly. This classic electromagnetic effect, EM effect, is often reported in UFO encounters, indicating a sophisticated technological presence overwhelming terrestrial electronics. As the car stalled, a massive, silent, disc-shaped craft descended slowly nearby, casting an eerie, focused glow on the surrounding area. According to the witnesses, Cardenas was immediately struck by a powerful, invisible energy. He was rendered instantly paralyzed, unable to move, speak, or resist. He was then, against all physics, levitated, slowly and silently lifted into the belly of the immense ship. His 3 friends, witnessing this impossible, terrifying scene, fled the location in sheer terror, becoming the first crucial piece of external corroboration. Crucially, this event didn't happen in isolation. Reports later surfaced suggesting that air traffic control personnel at a nearby airport also observed an unidentified flying object exhibiting unusual speed and maneuvers in the vicinity at the exact time of the abduction. This multiple source confirmation, linking ground witnesses to military or official observation, elevated the Cardenas case from a single sensational claim to a documented investigation. Inside the craft, the terrifying medical procedure began. Filiberto found himself in a large, sterile room, surrounded by the classic gray entities. He described them as short, approximately 4 feet tall, with large black eyes and smooth grayish skin. These grays subjected him to a full, invasive physical examination, utilizing strange small tools and focused lights. The examination was harrowing, but the most compelling and unique proof he carried back was physical. 108 small, perfectly circular marks etched across various parts of his body. These were not scars from old injuries. They were fresh, consistent, and meticulously placed. Investigators later photographed and documented these marks. What were they? Puncture wounds? Microburns from advanced sensor devices? Regardless, the precise number 108 strongly suggests a methodical, deliberate process, a scientific tally or diagnostic procedure. Cardenas returned with a physical receipt, a quantified injury that dramatically separates his story from typical abduction narratives. The medical examination was merely the prerequisite. The core purpose of the abduction was far grander, and it took place not on the ship, but in a different, hidden location. Cardenas later recalled being transported to a massive underground or undersea base, a structure described as a huge, technological cavern, giving the impression of a vast, naturally occurring underground chamber. Here he encountered an entity unlike the short, silent grays. This was the chief, the commanding presence. This being was tall, standing between 6 and 7 feet, majestic and uniquely intimidating. He wore a long, flowing dark yellow or gold cape and sat upon a large, ornate throne. He was the master. This detail of a high-ranking human-like figure is relatively rare and highly significant, suggesting a hierarchical structure within the alien operation. But the biggest shock came when the entity began to speak. He communicated not just telepathically, but verbally, in perfect, flowing Spanish. This suggested an ancient intimacy with human culture and language, implying they had been observing and operating on Earth for a very long time. The chief delivered a solemn and direct warning. Humanity was on a path to self-destruction. Through pollution, continuous warfare, and the proliferation of nuclear weapons, Earth was jeopardizing its own future. He stated that the alien program was a genetic preservation effort. They were methodically collecting and studying samples to ensure the survival of the human species, should we ultimately fail to save ourselves. This aligns the Cardenas case with the controversial but well-documented theory of a widespread hybridization or genetic monitoring program. Before Cardenas was returned, the chief bestowed upon him a gift and a concrete piece of evidence. A small metallic ring inscribed with alien symbols, a script unknown to any human language. This object became the third piece of physical evidence, alongside the 108 marks. While laboratory tests on the ring's material and potential radioactivity were inconclusive in proving its extraterrestrial origin, the foreign symbols cemented the reality of the encounter for Cardenas and his supporters. The story did not end with Filiberto's return. Weeks later, he received a powerful telepathic message. They wanted him back, but this time, he was instructed to bring his wife, Margarita Cardenas. The second abduction involving Margarita provided the final, crucial element of corroboration. The investigation was primarily conducted by respected ufologist Virgilio Sanchez Osejo. Understanding the limitations of conscious memory, both Filiberto and Margarita underwent multiple sessions of hypnotic regression with different specialists. The results were astonishing. Under deep hypnosis, both Filiberto and Margarita recounted their experiences, the paralysis, the grays, the chief, the subterranean base, with unwavering consistency across all sessions. Skeptics often dismiss regression therapy, but in the Cardenas case, the level of complex, consistent detail, especially regarding the specific count of the 108 marks and the chief's unique appearance and command of Spanish, makes pure fabrication highly improbable. This convinced many professional researchers that they were dealing with genuine, though suppressed, memories of a traumatic shared experience. The Filiberto Cardenas case remains a highly detailed and heavily corroborated file. It is solidified by a convergence of evidence: multiple eyewitness accounts at the scene and the airport, physical marks, the 108 count on Cardenas's body, the unusual metallic ring, and the consistent hypnotic testimonies of 2 family members. This case leaves us with profound questions. Were the 108 marks a biological diagnostic receipt? Was the entity on the throne truly a powerful figure in an alien genetic preservation program? And what does it mean that an advanced being, operating from a hidden base, was fluent in our languages? The Cardenas family sacrificed their privacy, and endured scrutiny to share this terrifying truth. Their legacy is a reminder that the phenomenon of alien abduction is not just about lights in the sky, it's about a methodical, intelligent, and ongoing interaction with humanity. Do you believe the 108 marks were definitive proof of a foreign diagnostic device? Or do you think the consistency of the stories was simply a case of shared psychological trauma? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've ever been alone in the woods and suddenly realized it's too quiet, this story will crawl under your skin, because sometimes that silence means you've just stepped into someone else's laboratory. Hikers go missing from remote American trails every year, but the man in tonight's story came back, and what was done to him suggests something out there isn't hunting us at all, it's harvesting us. The worst night of Yuan Thorne's life began on a wet, suffocating trail outside Duluth in 2012. At 28, he wasn't running from a killer or a debt collector, just from the slow, dull collapse of his own life, in a beat-up 2002 Subaru that barely loved him back. He thought an overnight hike near a place locals called Danger Castle would clear his head. Instead, it made him visible to something that doesn't see humans as people at all. He had been hiking for just under an hour when he stopped dead on the trail. Yuan initially thought it was a human corpse, but it was a deer, mutilated and splayed across the trail in a way that defied natural explanation. Its neck was twisted so far back it nearly touched the spine. The chest cavity had been hollowed out with surgical precision, and both hind legs were completely missing, severed without a trace. But the most unsettling detail wasn't the carnage. It was the chilling efficiency of it. There was virtually no blood on the forest floor, just the macabre carcass and a sharp, metallic tang in the air, a scent Yuan associated with an old industrial freezer. "This ain't good at all," he whispered, the sound swallowed immediately by the sudden, absolute silence. The woods had gone instantly, unnaturally quiet. No birdsong, no cricket chirps, not even the faint rustle of leaves in the non-existent wind. Yuan's heart hammered against his ribs. He snapped a few quick photos with his phone, his hands shaking, recognizing instinctively that he was no longer in a hiking story, but something infinitely worse. His brain screamed in a terrifying loop. You're walking into a Dateline episode, and you're the victim. That's when the pressure hit, a deep, subaudible resonance, a hum that seemed to bypass his ears entirely, vibrating the very bones in his skull like a colossal, overloaded transformer. It wasn't localized, it was everywhere and nowhere at once, an invisible force that made his stomach jump. Then the light came. It wasn't a beam or a flash, but a pervasive, pale green dome that pulsed faintly, enveloping the trees and turning the forest into a grotesque, skeletal landscape. The air crackled with intense static, and the hair on his arms stood straight up. His phone screen died instantaneously, a useless slab of dead plastic. He slowly turned in a full circle, the hum making him dizzy, and then he saw them. 3 figures standing just on the edge of the pulsating light. They were easily over 7 feet tall, impossibly lean, with limbs so long they defied basic anatomy. Their bodies were covered in a reflective, dark gray suit that looked organic yet metallic. Their heads were smooth and featureless, ovoid, with no discernible mouths or noses, just 2 enormous, deep black eyes that seemed to absorb all available light. They didn't walk, they slipped and glided across the forest floor, their joints bending in impossible ways, making them resemble immense, animated question marks. "Hello? Is someone there? Do you need help?" Yuan croaked, the words tasting pathetic. They offered no verbal response. One of them raised a disturbingly long arm,
I just
the
want
fingers tipped
to
with
know
shining
why
black
you're here.
instruments, and pointed directly at his chest. The gesture was a silent, absolute command. That was the instant he felt it, a searing, penetrating heat in his sternum, as if a white-hot branding iron was being pressed directly against his soul. His legs instantly buckled, and he collapsed, gasping for air as the pain locked his diaphragm. Before he could scream again, he was lifted, not by hands or ropes, but by something invisible, a crushing electromagnetic force that wrapped around him like thousands of tightening, non-existent strands. He couldn't twitch, he couldn't even weep. The forest below him blurred, then vanished. He awoke to find himself rigidly pinned to a metal slab that was leaching the warmth from his body. He was in a circular, cavernous room with no discernible walls, only a continuous, luminous silver surface reflecting a soft, blinding white light. The ceiling was a maze of shifting, complex geometric lights that made him intensely nauseous. His head throbbed, and his mouth tasted sharply of acrid copper. The air was colder and more sterile than any hospital he'd ever smelled. Two of the beings were positioned near his feet, operating sleek, humming consoles, while the third stood over him, its featureless head tilted in an attitude of profound, clinical study. "Where am I?" Yuan rasped, the sound a feeble echo. The being did not speak with its mouth. Instead, the vibration, now amplified and targeted, filled his skull. His mind was instantly flooded with a sensation, less like hearing words and more like a massive, incomprehensible block of data being forcefully downloaded into his consciousness, with only the core meaning translating. "You are not harmed. Do not resist. Your pain threshold is irrelevant to the objective." "Objective? You practically grilled my ribs." Yuan shot back, the sarcasm an instinctive defense. The figure tilted its head further, its black eyes unwavering. "Pain is subjective. Your physiological response indicates optimal stress levels for data acquisition." "Yeah, mine is not up for debate. What do you want? Why me?" The lights above shifted, bathing the room in a deep, unsettling violet. "You are accessible. Your location is remote. Your designation, unremarkable." The creature stepped aside. The second figure, standing near a console, approached, holding a sleek, oval device, a frightening blend of technology and the organic, pulsating with internal light. It held the device over Yuan's chest, and an intricate, rapidly shifting pattern of ultraviolet and infrared light scanned his torso. He felt a deep, tickling sensation in his lungs and kidneys as the machine analyzed him. Analysis complete. No structural anomalies. "Data acquisition successful," the first one spoke. "Your kind is a volatile, heavy resource. We observe. We must adapt." "Adapt? Why? Are you planning to invade?" The being's vibrational reply intensified, becoming harsher, colder. "Not invasion. Resource extraction. You deplete this planet at an unsustainable rate. We require maintenance, sustain." Yuan's attempts at further communication were suddenly and violently cut short. The metal slab beneath him began to lose its rigidity, becoming tacky and viscous, pulling him down like quicksand made of mercury and oil. He screamed, but a deafening return of the low, pervasive hum instantly devoured the sound. His vision warped as the figures became stretched, elongated shadows. He opened his eyes again, choking, back on the cold, damp forest floor. The pale green dome of light was gone, replaced by the faint, miserable light of pre-dawn. His chest still burned with residual pain, and his phone rebooted, instantly flashing dozens of notifications, a mocking return to trivial reality. He stumbled, adrenaline-soaked, back towards the trailhead. Near his car, he found the two other bodies, a man and a woman who had simply been hiking. Their torsos were slumped, their skin unblemished, but internally they were crushed, as if the pressure that had held Yuan had simply imploded their vital organs. The metallic tang in the air returned, sickening him. Yuan called 911, stammering an incomplete, incoherent story about hikers being attacked by something. The police found the bodies, the strange scorch marks on the ground, and the bizarre fact that the victims' internal organs had been liquefied without a single external wound. They dismissed Yuan as a traumatized witness, perhaps a suspect. Yuan Thorne doesn't hike anymore. He sold the Subaru. Sometimes, late at night, he still hears that low, vibrating hum, and he feels the phantom pressure in his sternum. He knows they are still out there, watching, waiting for the next unremarkable specimen to wander into their path. The incident experienced by Yuan Thorne is more than just an abduction. It is a chilling lesson in the insignificance of the individual to a superior force. The cold, clinical messages, resource and unremarkable, drive home a terrifying truth. To these entities, humanity is not a target for conquest, but an object for resource extraction. The precise and brutal elimination of the deer and the two innocent hikers points to a cold, systematic strategy. They take what they need, and whatever remains is discarded as waste. It makes one shudder to think how many quiet disappearances on secluded trails are, in fact, similar harvesting trips. If you find this story unsettling, or if you have ever heard that strange, deep hum or felt inexplicable pressure, we urge you to share your experiences. Like this post to support our work in uncovering these truths. Comment below with your theories. What are these entities, and what kind of resource are they truly seeking? Share this story to spread Yuan Thorne's chilling message. Your engagement is what keeps the search for the unknown alive. There is a very specific time when Route 54 becomes lethal, 2:11 a.m. If your radio cuts out, your GPS dies, and your phone connects to 911 by itself, don't bother hitting the brakes. They've already found you. If that unsettled you, wait until you hear what happened at exactly 2:11 a.m. Leona Ward was a 911 operator in the quiet, isolated town of Santa Rosa, New Mexico. The town's official population stood at 2,744, a figure that felt generous on most days. For 12 years, Ward had mastered the familiar, often comforting rhythm of the desert and the deep silence of the graveyard shift. She recognized the voices of the local farmers, the teenagers pulling harmless pranks, and the lonely elderly residents seeking reassurance. She knew her routine, her town, and her job. Santa Rosa existed primarily as a necessary pit stop on Route 54, the kind of place travelers only glanced at. They would fill their gas tanks, grab beef jerky and a Coke, use the facilities at the Love's truck stop, and then immediately vanish back onto that endless ribbon of black highway. Route 54 was a north-south artery cutting through the desolate desert, linking Tucumcari to the north with Alamogordo to the south. Most of the territory it traversed was empty land, stunningly beautiful in the harsh light of dawn, yet utterly devoid of human presence, and profoundly lonely. Ward insisted she wasn't crazy, despite questioning her own sanity countless times. She was compelled to recount everything that had happened, detailing the terrifying, precise pattern that began exactly at 2:11 a.m. The beginning of the nightmare was the transition from Thursday night to Friday morning, March 14, 2019. Ward was seated at her console, anticipating the usual quiet inertia of the early morning hours. At precisely 2:11 a.m., her headset exploded with sound. It wasn't the sound of a bad signal or typical cell interference. It was a dense, heavy, unnatural static, a sound so saturated it felt physically palpable, as though the caller was trapped beneath tons of water or broadcasting from a distant, vibrating star. The sheer wrongness of the sound sent a shiver down her spine, raising the hairs on her arms. Piercing this sonic wall was the desperate, trembling voice of a young man, Michael Valdez. He claimed he was driving his gray 2015 Honda Civic on Route 54 and was being pursued by lights in the sky. The terror in his voice was not manufactured, it was raw, primal fear. Valdez reported a complete systems failure. His radio, GPS, and cell phone were dead, yet somehow, miraculously, the 911 line had connected. He sounded like a man drowning in technological isolation. The data screen offered no comfort. Ward's console remained stubbornly blank. No coordinates, no tower triangulation, no incoming log nothing to anchor the call in reality. She could hear his panicked breathing, the frantic details of his vehicle, and his increasing desperation. He described seeing shapes within the pulsing light and screamed for immediate help before the line instantly went dead. There was no fading, no clicking, just an instantaneous, complete severance of the connection. Ward dispatched Officer Ruben Marquez. While waiting, she checked her logs. The horrifying reality sunk in. Her system showed no record of the call ever being placed. The only remnant was an automated recording file that, chillingly, was exactly 8 seconds long and contained nothing but the heavy, underwater static. The 4 minutes of desperate conversation she had just experienced had simply been erased from the system's memory. At 2:34 a.m., Marquez reported back. He had found no sign of the Honda Civic. The highway was desolate, just as it usually was at that hour. The final, unsettling confirmation arrived hours later from the Albuquerque police. Michael Valdez was safely home, having been asleep since midnight. His gray Civic was cold and dusty, confirmed not to have been driven for days. Valdez had been at his residence, yet Ward knew with absolute certainty that she had heard a more perfect echo of him screaming into the void on Route 54. Officer Marquez later confided in Ward. Though he initially dismissed it as an atmospheric anomaly, what he saw at 02:45 a.m. near mile marker 290 was impossible. He described an intensely bright white light hovering miles off the highway. It did not drift or accelerate. It abruptly teleported a significant distance south. Then, with an acceleration that defied all known physics, faster than any fighter jet or space shuttle launch, it shot straight up into the black sky and vanished. Marquez, a man whose professional credibility was everything, was visibly shaken by the impossibility of the sighting. The silence that followed the Valdez incident lasted 3 weeks, but for Ward, it was merely an anticipation. The dread became reality on April 4th at exactly 02:11 a.m. The headset erupted with the exact same, uniquely terrifying dense static. This time, the panicked voice belonged to Sarah Baker. She was also on Route 54, and her terror was fueled by recognition. She mentioned seeing the news story about the other people, indicating the phenomenon was already known in hushed rumors or local reports. Sarah described a massive object hovering directly above her blue Ford Escape. The object was enormous, not a plane, emitting pulsing red and white lights. She detailed a visceral sensory assault, a deep, powerful humming sound that didn't just rattle the car, but vibrated through her body, causing excruciating pain in her teeth and bones. It was a physical violation transmitted through sound. She then whispered that she saw something opening up beneath the object, revealing a blinding white light, and within that light, dark shapes, too tall, too thin, confirming her deepest fear. They can't be human. The line cut out instantly. The outcome was identical. Sarah Baker was later confirmed to be safe at home in Las Cruces, her vehicle in her garage, having never left. The call log remained blank, and the recording was 8 seconds of static. The pattern was sealed. In the following months, their 02:11 a.m. calls continued. Ward logged them mentally, knowing her system wouldn't retain the evidence. The victims were found safe at home, yet their cars were discovered abandoned on Route 54. Ward knew these people had been subjected to something traumatic and invasive. They were safe, but deeply tampered with. The authorities began to focus on the vehicles themselves. The most chilling commonality was the ritualistic evidence left behind. The abandoned cars were always found centered and perfectly framed within a perfect triangular shape, formed by 3 large, circular, thermal burn marks etched into the asphalt. These scorch marks were meticulously spaced approximately 47 feet, about 14 meters apart. Forensic analysis confirmed the pavement beneath the car was still warm, indicating the powerful thermal energy had been focused and released just moments before the car was left behind. This geometric precision ruled out natural phenomena or any conventional explanation. It suggested a controlled, measured operation, a harvest, a retrieval, or a signal. By December 2025, 2 years after the initial incident, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Leona Ward was no longer a lone operator dealing with an anomaly. She was the central, critical component of a joint task force comprising the FBI and the New Mexico State Police. Her dispatch office was now a field command post, equipped with specialized surveillance and recording devices. The mission was clear: intercept the next event and secure evidence. The tension in the office was almost unbearable. Tonight is Saturday, December 6th, 2025. The clock shows 2:08 a.m. Only 3 agonizing minutes remain until the expected time of contact. FBI agents are stationed silently in the adjacent room, monitoring multiple feeds. Recording devices are active and being double-checked. A fully prepared response team is standing by directly on Route 54, strategically positioned and ready to move. Ward's hand is firmly on her headset, her notebook open and her pen poised. She had stopped feeling fear long ago. Now, there was only determination. In 3 minutes, Ward will find out if all their preparation is enough. She is the nexus point, the only reliable constant in the phenomenon. The truth they seek is about what has been taking people off the highway, what has been utilizing their 911 dispatchers as a means of communication, and what has been deliberately leaving those perfect triangular burn marks a signature in the desert. The clock reads 029. The entire fate of understanding this phenomenon rests on the next 120 seconds. Ward concludes her account with the same chilling professional warning she issues to the task force. Route 54 between Santa Rosa and Vaughn is a kill zone at 2:11 a.m. If you are there and your GPS fails, your radio cuts to static, and your phone connects to only one number, 911. We will hear you. We will document your call. We will send help as fast as we can, but the question remains, are we ready for what happens next? This testimony you are listening is my attempt to bring the truth of Route 54 out into the light, and I need your help to keep it visible. If you find this information compelling, if you believe this phenomenon needs to be investigated further, please hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up, and share your theories in the comments below. Your support ensures this message and the patterns we uncover can't be easily silenced. The truck lifted without a sound. No roar, no dust blast, no engine strain. It rose like the desert had forgotten gravity, turning slowly as if something above it was inspecting every panel and bolt. For a few seconds it hung there, suspended in perfect silence, the headlights pointing into empty air. Then it dropped. Metal folded on impact, glass burst. The frame collapsed into itself in a way that felt ordinary only after you ignored the impossible part. Across the sand, a clean spherical darkness had hovered moments earlier, like a piece of the night sky had been cut out and lowered toward the ground. And now that void was gone, leaving only a ruined vehicle, frost forming where the desert should have been warm, and instruments that recorded a 90-second blackout as if reality had blinked. That was not the first time Cole Maddox saw it. It was the moment he realized it had been watching back. Cole Maddox had heard the stories the way everyone on the range heard them. A light too clean to be a flare. A blackout that lasted just long enough to make you doubt your own memory. A patch of desert that turned cold for no reason anyone could name. People laughed about it in daylight and went quiet about it at night. It was not that Cole had never considered it. He just refused to believe it could happen to him. The range was built for tests and measurements, not for things that slipped past both. Cole trusted routines and systems. If something strange appeared, there would be a report, a weather note, a maintenance explanation. Then it happened. And after that, the hardest part was not what he saw, but how impossible it became to keep pretending it was nothing. March 14, 2019, 2:47 a.m. Cole patrols the northern edge near the red zone boundary. Without warning, the Humvee loses all power, instant and total, as if the circuit of the world has been opened. The radio becomes pure static. A quarter-mile away, a pale blue-white column appears, perfectly straight from sky to ground. It makes no sound and casts no spill light, visible as a shape rather than illumination. Cole counts the seconds, staying awake, staying present, measuring the event by will alone. At 90 seconds, the column vanishes instantly. In the same breath, the Humvee returns to life, as if the shutdown never happened. Back at base, the logs confirm the part that should not be possible. A radar blackout occurred for the same 90 seconds within 3 miles of his location. Thermal sensors recorded a localized 40-degree drop. GPS data shows his vehicle as perfectly stationary for the full window, even though his mind insists he was alert and counting. The incident leaves no debris, no crater, no visible burn. It leaves only synchronized absence across multiple systems, like a controlled field switching on and off. 2 weeks later, Cole meets Sienna Torres at the radar center supporting the Goldwater Range. She has been tracking voids, clean geometric holes cut out of radar returns, not noise and not malfunction. These voids move in straight lines toward the northeast at roughly 400 miles per hour, consistent enough to plot, consistent enough to predict. Reports label them atmospheric anomalies, but the voids behave like objects with boundaries. Cole and Sienna compare timelines and find overlaps. The blue-white columns appear near major test sites, Yuma, Goldwater Range, and the Sonoran Desert corridors. Close to those windows, other anomalies cluster. Navigation reversals, orientation errors, instruments briefly reporting the world flipped. The pattern suggests the void is not simply a blind spot. It is an active suppression zone that degrades detection and destabilizes electronics inside its radius. They build an informal group, people who have touched the same edge from different angles. Marcus Sanders, a pilot who has felt airborne systems go dark near a void. Sarah Kelly, maintenance, who can confirm the faults do not match normal failure chains and sometimes align with magnetic irregularities. David Torres, an environmental contractor tracking electromagnetic spikes in places the range rarely discusses. None of them can name the phenomenon. All of them agree on the same conclusion. It behaves as if it is applied deliberately. They build a network, not to chase a craft, but to catch the signature in motion. Multiple EM sensors, synchronized timestamps, redundant recorders, and layered observation points designed to survive the same interference that keeps erasing the middle of events. The goal is simple. If a void forms again, they want the moment it begins, the moment it peaks, and the moment it collapses, all measured from more than one angle. On April 4th, 2019, the network triggers. A void is forming. Sanders tracks from a helicopter and describes it as a perfect dark region, as if a circle has been cut out of the night sky. It is not shadow, it is absence, a boundary so clean it looks manufactured. As he closes to roughly 200 yards, the helicopter loses power for 20 seconds. The failure is immediate, complete, and then it returns just as cleanly, proving proximity matters and proving the void is not passive. Cole approaches on the ground. The temperature drops rapidly as he enters the field, cold enough that frost forms on fabric in a desert night. The air feels dense, the silence pressed, as if sound itself has to push harder to exist. Ahead, the pale blue-white column appears again, the same color as the March event, perfectly straight, touching down near the void center. The ground begins to change where the column meets the sand. It does not scatter or burn, it reorganizes. Grains lock into repeating geometry, crystalline facets forming patterns that look engineered rather than natural, as if material is being forced into structure by an invisible rule. Then the truck lifts. No roar, no dust blast, no engine scream. It rises slowly in silence, rotates as if examined, and hangs for a brief interval that makes the desert feel like a laboratory. The moment is long enough to register the impossibility, then short enough to offer no control. The truck drops and is destroyed on impact. Above, the spherical void collapses in segmented folds, like geometric panels closing inward. It compresses, fractures into orderly sections, then disappears. The sky returns to normal immediately, leaving behind only the altered ground, the destroyed vehicle, and the data trail that proves a field was present. The event does not feel like an accident. It feels like demonstration. Months later, after the group has accumulated evidence and synchronized records, a message arrives that leads them to a meeting site. They go together. A smaller spherical void forms directly overhead, and the blue-white column descends. A tall, thin, humanoid figure emerges briefly, observed rather than approached, present for only seconds, long enough to confirm that the phenomenon is not only a field, but an operator. When it vanishes, the warning arrives in the only form that matters, a choice framed as consequence. Continue investigating and accept the risk of exposure and destabilization, or accept that some answers carry weight they are not ready to hold. The group understands the real shift. They are not watching a mystery from a distance anymore. The mystery has looked back and responded. They did not go public, not because the evidence was weak, but because the pattern was clear. Every time the phenomenon appeared, detection failed cleanly, systems went blind in a controlled radius, and time behaved like something that could be edited. Attention did not produce clarity, it produced response. So they split the files, duplicated the logs, and kept watching from farther out, treating the desert like a perimeter rather than a stage. What stays with Cole is not the lights or the void. It is the feeling of being measured. The truck lift was not a mistake. The origami collapse was not random. It looked like a sequence completing itself, a demonstration that could be repeated whenever the operator chose. The warning that followed did not demand silence. It offered a trade. Curiosity in exchange for exposure. And now the question lands on you in a different way. If the most instrumented range on Earth can be turned blind for 90 seconds, what happens in places with no sensors at all? If a perfect hole can be cut out of radar, what else can be cut out and made to look like it never existed? If you ever see a column of blue-white light that does not illuminate anything, or a patch of sky that looks like absence instead of darkness, do not assume you are the only observer. Assume you have been noticed. Erin Massey had flown Wichita to Hayes so many times she could picture the route with her eyes closed. Same towers, same farmhouse lights, same quiet Kansas night that made you forget the world was big. At 10:39 p.m. she saw a light dead ahead, sitting exactly on her flight path. Too steady, too yellow, too fixed. Wichita Center said the radar was clean, no traffic, no towers at her altitude, nothing. She eased 5 degrees north to go around it. The light stayed centered in her windshield. She corrected again. It stayed centered, like it wasn't in the sky, like it was locked onto her. At a mile out, the single light split into 7, arranged in a perfect circle, rotating slowly around a core of darkness, darker than the night itself. Her radio drowned in static. The engine hiccuped once, then again, like it was choking on air that wasn't air. The 7 lights stopped rotating at the same time, and Erin understood, with a cold certainty that hit her stomach before her mind could catch up. They weren't floating there. They were waiting. A Cessna 172 is a simple aircraft, and Kansas is a simple sky. That is why the anomaly hit so hard. The light did not blink like aviation lights, did not drift like a star, and did not show on radar. It behaved as if it knew her route, her altitude, her decisions. Erin did not want to believe it was intentional, but the feeling grew anyway. Something was choosing her. Erin saw a dull yellow light dead ahead at her exact altitude. It didn't blink, didn't drift, and Wichita Center saw nothing on radar. She turned 5 degrees north to give it space. The light stayed centered in her windscreen. She turned again, still centered, like it was matching her. At 2 miles, it resolved into 7 lights in a perfect circle, rotating slowly around a center darker than the night sky, a solid disc-shaped void swallowing starlight. Her radio drowned in heavy static. Her engine coughed once, then twice. Gauges stayed normal. The 7 lights stopped rotating in the same instant, and the cockpit flooded with harsh yellow, like daylight with no shadows. Then the engine simply stopped. Clean. Total. She pushed the nose down to glide and ran the restart checklist, but nothing responded. The 7 lights slid out of formation and surrounded her, moving with her descent like an escort. She grabbed her phone to record. The screen turned pure white. A single word appeared. Activated. Ahead, the underside of the dark disk seemed to open like a doorway. For one breath, she saw a tall, thin silhouette in that opening, watching her without moving. Then everything snapped back. The disk shot straight up and vanished. The 7 lights were gone. Her radio cleared. Her engine roared to life as if nothing had happened. Erin kept flying, hands shaking, with only that one word burning in her mind. Activated. Hayes Tower cleared Erin in like any normal night, but on short final she saw Tommy Greer's pickup by the terminal, headlights pulsing in perfect expanding circles, like a slow mechanical heartbeat. The tower said their cameras showed nothing unusual. She landed. By the time she shut down, Tommy's lights were steady again. Normal. Her phone wasn't. One photo saved at the exact time of the encounter. The image showed only empty sky and stars, but in the corner, a single word sat there like it had been stamped into reality. Activated. Tommy didn't laugh when she asked if he'd seen anything strange. His face tightened, like he'd been waiting for someone else to say it first. He told her he'd seen the same thing over a wheat field outside town. 7 yellow lights in a perfect circle, rotating slowly, then shooting straight up and vanishing. He drove her out there. In the field, a flawless 30-foot circle marked the ground. The wheat stubble inside wasn't crushed or burned, just bent at exact 90-degree angles into a spiraling pattern, too precise to be weather, too clean to be human. No footprints, no tracks, just geometry, as if something had pressed a symbol into the land and left without touching it. Back at the hotel, the fear turned sharper. Erin came out of the shower to find her phone awake on the bed, camera running, aimed at the window like an eye. She hadn't touched it. In the corner of the screen, the word appeared again. Activated. She tried to shut it off. It reopened. She wrapped the phone in a towel and locked it in the bathroom, but the feeling stayed. Not that she was being watched by people. That something in the sky had noticed her, marked her, and was still there. The next morning didn't feel new. It felt like the night had only changed its clothes. Erin woke before her alarm with a pressure behind her eyes. Her phone was on the pillow beside her head, even though she'd sealed it away. The time flickered. A calendar alert sat on the screen, impossible to delete. Runway 36, 7 a.m., do not be late. She tried everything: delete, power off, settings, airplane mode. The alert always returned, calm and absolute, like a command that didn't need her consent. Tommy texted her to meet at the field. The crop circle was no longer just geometry. In the pre-dawn dark, the spiral faintly glowed, each bent stalk outlined with a cold bluish light, uniform and precise like a circuit traced into nature. Erin raised her phone to film. The camera app crashed instantly. Tommy showed her his phone. A GPS route had appeared by itself, coordinates northwest of Hayes, and when he tried to remove it, it reset. 2 devices, 2 people, the same invisible hand. At Hayes, the airport looked ordinary, but Erin felt watched the way you feel it in your bones. She pre-flighted the Cessna with obsessive care. Nothing wrong, nothing touched. She lifted off at 7 a.m. on runway 36. At 500 feet, her phone chimed. A new message from no sender. Maintain heading 350. Climb to 7500. Do not deviate, she obeyed. At altitude, the prairie opened below. Clean daylight. Nowhere to hide. Dead ahead, a single yellow light hovered at her level. Steady and wrong. It didn't blink. It didn't drift. It simply existed in her path like a pinned star. More text appeared. Approach at current altitude. Maintain airspeed. Her radio thickened with static, crushing every frequency at once. The air in the cockpit felt thin, charged. The yellow light grew larger until it resolved into the underside of a disc, dark enough to seem like it absorbed sunlight. Panels and seams cut across it with geometric precision. Markings ran along the surface, too structured to be damaged, too alien to be human script. Then an opening formed beneath it. It didn't hinge or unfold. It separated, as if reality was being sliced cleanly and pulled apart. A rectangular void, perfectly sized in a way that made her stomach drop. Erin tried to pull away. The yoke resisted, not jammed, simply overridden. The plane descended with gentle certainty she didn't command. The yellow glow intensified until the cockpit looked like harsh noon. Shadows vanished, depth collapsed, sound thinned. Her phone went white. One word appeared: activated. And then, time fractured. Later she would swear it was only seconds. But the altitude didn't match. The clock didn't match. Her memory had holes with sharp edges. When the static cleared, the disk was gone. The sky was normal. The engine ran as if it had never stuttered. Her phone was back to normal too, except for a new photo in her camera roll. It was crystal clear. The underside of the disk in daylight, unmistakable. In the metadata, where location should be, there were only coordinates. Erin followed them. In the middle of farmland that should have been empty, she saw a facility that should not exist. White buildings arranged with sterile symmetry, a tall fence topped with razor wire. And at the center, a massive dish antenna angled toward the sky like an ear pressed to space. Whatever had activated her hadn't just shown itself. It had left a trail, and it was leading her somewhere on purpose. Activated didn't mean her phone. It meant her. The pattern is the point. Isolation first, then electronics go dead, then you're guided by instructions with no sender. Evidence shows up already curated, while time itself goes missing in a clean, measurable block your body can't explain. If Erin is telling the truth, this wasn't a warning, and it wasn't an accident. It was contact done with precision. The disc, the opening, the sphere, the erased minutes, and the switch left on inside her afterward. So here's the question. If the sky spoke to you tomorrow through missing time and a single word burned into your proof, would you call it a glitch? Or would you admit it was a message? Drop your theories in the comments. Subscribe for more sightings, missing time patterns, and the hidden signals above ordinary roads. The call came in like any other. Loose cattle on Highway 16. A routine hazard in Texas hill country, the kind of thing that ends with reflective cones and irritated ranch hands. But Nina Caldwell arrived to a pasture that looked staged. 63 head of cattle stood in a ruler straight line, perfectly still, all facing the same patch of sky. No chewing, no swishing tails, no restless hooves. Just a synchronized stillness that felt less like fear and more like instruction. And then her phone clock slid backward, minute by minute, as if time itself had been told to wait. Nina had been a Texas state trooper for 7 years. She trusted patterns, tire marks, heat shimmer, human lies. She knew what panic looked like and what fraud sounded like. That night, outside Medina and Bandera, she felt something worse than panic. She felt a system operating with calm confidence, using the land, the animals, and the air above them like components. Hill country was supposed to be open space and honest darkness. Instead, it became a sealed room. Bo Harrington met her near the fence line, older hands shaking with a kind of dread that didn't ask for comfort. The cattle were not scattered across the road like the dispatch said. They were gathered, arranged, aligned, as if the pasture had turned into a runway. Nina stepped into the grass, and the world grew quieter in a way she couldn't explain. Not the normal quiet of rural Texas, but an engineered quiet. Insects still existed, the breeze should have existed, yet everything that made the night feel alive was suddenly muted, as if someone had lowered the volume on nature. A faint light pulsed on the roof of the cattle barn. It was dim, almost shy, but it had a rhythm. A slow heartbeat of illumination that made the barn look temporarily unreal. The strangest part wasn't the glow, it was the shadows. Fence posts, railing, even the cattle themselves cast shadows that leaned toward the light, not away from it. The pasture's logic had flipped. Nina caught herself staring at the ground, trying to force physics to behave. When she checked her phone again, it insisted the evening was still in the 7 o'clock hour. Her patrol car's dashboard clock agreed. Her wristwatch did not. Her sense of time did not. The sky looked like after 9, the deep kind of dark that arrives when the day is fully gone. Yet the devices around her kept rewinding, as if something overhead wanted the night to last longer. The clouds began to move with purpose. They didn't drift. They rotated, tightening into a perfect circle, a clean geometry that didn't belong to weather. The ring widened and stabilized, and at the center of it hung a shape so dark it seemed to drink starlight. Not a silhouette, not a shadow, a mass. Nina felt her throat close as the air temperature dropped fast, too fast, the kind of sudden chill that doesn't come from wind. Heat fled the yard in a single breath. Her skin tightened, her fingertips went numb. On the barn roof, figures appeared, tall, thin, wrong in their proportions. They didn't move like people crossing a surface. They repositioned with minimal motion, like frames missing between moments. Their bodies were long and spare, with angles that hinted at joints but refused to confirm them. Nina couldn't settle her eyes on faces. She could only register the fact of attention. The cattle did not run. They remained lined up like witnesses. The pulsing roof light brightened and the shadows bent harder toward it, as if gravity had begun taking instructions from illumination. Nina reached for procedure, for radio calls and backup requests, for anything that would turn this into an incident with a normal ending. But the air had a different plan. The sound around her thinned. The usual world felt farther away, like she was standing inside a bubble that didn't share rules with the road behind her. Then her mind slipped, not into sleep, not into unconsciousness, into somewhere adjacent, a sideways fall into a different awareness. Nina's awareness didn't fade like sleep. It slid sideways, as if the ranch and the night were still there, only separated by a thin pane of glass. One moment she was in hill country air that smelled of dust and cattle. The next, she stood under a purple-gray sky that felt too low, lit by light that came from everywhere at once and made shadows feel unnecessary. The ground held her weight without texture. In the distance, structures rose that didn't look built so much as grown, ribbed arcs and layered shells that pulsed faintly like a system breathing. No doors, no windows, no obvious machines. Yet the place felt like a controlled environment, a sterile field designed to test one thing. Her. A pressure gathered behind her eyes. Not pain at first, but a firm hand on the back of her thoughts, turning her attention where it wanted. Memories surfaced in clean sequence, pulled forward as if selected from labeled drawers. Her first day in uniform, crash scenes, night radios, the habit of scanning for danger even when nothing was happening. It didn't feel like interrogation, it felt like measurement. The presence was immense, not in size but in certainty. Meaning arrived without words, packed tight and unfolding inside her mind. It wasn't cruel, it wasn't kind. It simply observed with a calm so complete it made human fear feel loud. Then she understood what was happening at the ranch. They weren't interested in cattle as livestock. They were interested in what cattle did to people. The protective instinct, the way a rancher guarded his herd, the way a trooper stepped between harm and someone else. That was the signal they were studying, the human reflex to shield. And Bo Harrington was the target. A fixed period, 47 days. Not a threat in the human sense, more like a clinical decision. Nina sensed that the bargaining itself was part of the process, to see who would offer themselves, to see what humans did when the danger wasn't a gun or a storm, but an intelligence that could rewrite the rules of the room. So she pushed her intent forward like a badge in the dark and offered a trade. Not pleading, structure. She presented herself as a better variable, trained observation, stress discipline, a mind conditioned to record detail. If they wanted to study protection and empathy, she could give them a cleaner sample than Bo, and she could survive the process long enough to remember it. The presence evaluated her with frightening neutrality. The pressure behind her eyes intensified, and the world seemed to pause on the edge of an answer. Agreement arrived without warmth. It felt like a latch releasing. The purple-gray sky deepened. The grown structures seemed to lean toward her awareness. She felt herself being opened, not harmed, but unfolded. Layers of memory and identity briefly exposed, scanned, and stacked back into place. For an instant, she saw a wider grid beyond this space. Moving lights in the dark, corridors of brightness connecting points like routes on a map that wasn't meant for humans. Then it snapped shut. Nina sensed the ranch again like a distant sound through walls. She understood she had only a second to leave proof in the human world, a single thread that might survive what came next. Her last act of control was practical, not heroic, forcing a message out to her department before the connection collapsed. And then the barn, the cattle, the rotating clouds, all of it fell away. Not destroyed, simply removed, as if a square of the world had been folded inward. The study began. Nina came back on Christmas morning, alone in wet grass with no tracks, like the night had been removed and put back wrong. Her body was fine, but time didn't feel straight anymore. Some moments arrived like memories from the future. She kept the job because routine was the only thing that still felt real. Officially, nothing happened. When she tried to write it down, the details slipped, turning soft and ordinary, like the truth didn't want a record. Now, on empty stretches of Highway 16, she doesn't scan for headlights. She watches the sky for seams. The scariest part wasn't what they showed her. It was how calm she felt agreeing to it. What if the bargain never ended? It just moved inside her. If your shadow ever pointed the wrong way, would you keep driving or stop and look up? Drop your theory in the comments. Subscribe for more missing time and repeating patterns. This isn't fiction, it's a warning. Night in the Rockies. The cab is the only warm box of light for miles. Jackson grips the wheel as the road ahead looks edited, like someone erased the depth from the world and left only a flat strip of asphalt in its place. The beams from his truck still blaze, yet they stop short in midair, as if the darkness has weight. Then a pressure settles over the roof, not wind, not weather, something vast and deliberate. The engine sound thins into a hollow hum, every gauge steady but meaningless, and the air inside the cab turns metallic and sharp. Jackson lifts his eyes to the windshield and realizes he is not approaching the anomaly. It is approaching him. October 2019, Colorado. The stretch from Grand Junction toward Gunnison is the kind of road that feels empty even when you are not alone. Just black mountains, cold air, and the hum of a diesel engine trying to keep you anchored to reality. Jackson had 15 years behind the wheel. He knew the difference between fear and imagination. That night, the road taught him a third thing. The line ran parallel to the highway, bright but sourceless, not blinking like aircraft lights, not shimmering like reflection, just a clean glowing stroke suspended in open air. Jackson slowed. Mary leaned forward, trying to make sense of it, trying to film it. The phone struggled to lock focus, hunting the darkness, refusing the line like it did not want to be recorded. Then the headlights failed in the strangest way. The bulbs still burned. The dashboard still glowed, but the beam would not reach the road. It stacked up in front of the grill, flat and useless, as if the night had turned solid. The truck shuddered and died. A hard cut of silence. No wind through mirrors. No engine vibration. Just their breathing. Seconds later, everything returned at once. Engine, radio, normal light. Jackson drove on, trying to laugh it off. 10 minutes later, Mary checked the GPS. Same coordinates, same mile marker, same distance to Gunnison, still locked at 38 to 40 miles like the road had reset. They passed signs they had already passed. They saw a reflector that felt familiar, then impossible. Jackson kept driving anyway, because stopping made it feel worse. The line returned. This time it did not float beside the road. It stretched across the highway ahead, widening into a pale tear in the dark. The air around it looked wrong, like heat shimmer without heat. Jackson did the only thing his instincts could agree on. He put his foot down and drove straight through. The moment the truck crossed the seam, the pressure in their ears released. The GPS jumped forward. The next sign finally changed. The road began behaving like a road again. 3 months later, Jackson had to take Highway 50 again, daylight this time. Alone. He told himself daylight meant safety. It did not. Midway through the run, he saw a woman in a white dress standing on the shoulder. No coat, no bag, no car nearby. Just her, perfectly still as if placed there. As he approached, the details broke. Her eyes sat too far apart. Her mouth looked too wide. Her skin had the waxy calm of a store mannequin trying to imitate a human being. Jackson stared, caught between braking and fleeing. The truck passed her, and she turned to follow him. Not like a person, like a display on a rotating stand. A smooth mechanical pivot that kept her face tracking the cab until Jackson could no longer see her in the mirror. Then Jackson felt it, that prickling certainty you get when you are being measured. Not watched casually, watched with purpose. A thought slid in, quiet and cold, not in words, but in meaning. We know you. Jackson told himself it was just a weird roadside moment. Then his CB radio hissed, one thin line of static, clean and steady, like a tone. No voice, no chatter, just a single frequency that didn't belong. A mile later, the world started to thin out. Not visually. Colorado still looked like Colorado, but sound became too clean. The tire noise dulled, like someone lowered the volume on the universe. Even the vibration through the wheel felt filtered. Jackson glanced at the clock. The digits looked normal, but the seconds didn't tick. So much as hold, like time was deciding whether to move. Then his headlights did something impossible in broad daylight. They were on, bright, normal, and yet the beam hit the air ahead and stopped, flattened against an invisible surface just beyond the hood, as if the light couldn't move forward. Jackson whispered, no. He eased off the gas, instinct, then tried to correct back into the lane. The steering didn't resist, it wasn't stiff. It felt like the road had become a track and the truck was no longer his. And then the engine shut down, not a cough, not a sputter, a clean surgical cut. RPM dropped to 0, the hum vanished. The cab became a sealed box of silence. He coasted to the shoulder, hands shaking, trying the ignition. Nothing. The dash stayed lit, but the lights looked wrong, too steady, too perfect, like a screenshot of a dashboard rather than a living system. Jackson looked down at his phone on the seat. The screen was awake. One word sat there as if it had always been waiting. Stay. He didn't remember unlocking it. He didn't remember anyone typing it. And then he saw the shadow. It wasn't cast by clouds. It didn't match the sun's angle. It slid over the road in a shape that shouldn't exist. A triangle, wide enough to swallow his rig. Jackson forced himself to look up. A black triangular craft hung above Highway 50, low, silent, with 3 faint points of light at its corners. No seams, no detail. It didn't reflect sunlight so much as refuse it. The air changed, cold pressure behind the eyes, a metallic bite like ozone. From the center underside, something unfolded. Not a spotlight, but a hard-edged column of pale light, as straight as a doorway drawn into the air. Dust stopped drifting, and inside that column a figure resolved, tall, thin, with limbs that bent the wrong way, joints stacked where joints shouldn't be. It didn't walk down. It simply became present on the asphalt as if distance had been folded. Jackson's throat locked. He couldn't scream. Then the contact arrived, not through sound, but straight into his head, sharp and emotionless. Seen. A second pulse followed, images that weren't his choice, the white hovering line from months ago, the GPS loop, the moment reality tore across the road. And then, the woman in the white dress, now not standing at the shoulder but standing inside his memory like a bookmark, the same wrong face, the same fixed attention. Another thought pressed in, colder. Watcher, lure, alignment confirmed. The figure lifted a long hand and touched the truck's window. The fingers were too long, too many bends. The gesture wasn't threatening, it was testing, like learning what glass is. Jackson tried to move, his body didn't respond. Not paralysis, something worse. Like his impulse had nowhere to go. Then the final thought landed, heavy as a verdict. Marked, continued. Sound snapped back, wind, distant traffic. The creak of the cab, the column of light was gone. The triangle was gone. The phone screen returned to normal like it had never shown anything. The engine restarted by itself. Jackson sat there breathing hard, staring at empty sky, knowing the scariest part wasn't the shutdown. It was how precisely it had all been timed. As if the roadside woman wasn't random, she was a trigger, a sign that the next stage had begun. That night he checked his dashcam. The file list jumped from 2:13 p.m. to 2:29 p.m., 16 minutes missing. The gap wasn't a corrupted file. It was cleanly removed, as if somebody had highlighted a strip of time and cut it out. 2 days later, a plain envelope appeared in his mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Inside, a single photo, taken from high above Highway 50 in daylight, his rig on the shoulder, and above it, unmistakable, the black triangle hanging perfectly centered. At the bottom, one line, "You were seen." And Jackson finally understood what the woman's stare had been. Not curiosity, not warning, a handoff. Jackson says the worst part wasn't the craft. It was the feeling that Highway 50 had turned into a checkpoint and he'd been processed. Because you can explain a blackout, you can explain a GPS loop, but you can't explain a photo taken from above your truck when you never saw anything up there. So tell me, if it happened to you, would you keep driving or would you vanish first? At 2:03 a.m., the Mojave is so quiet that the cruiser engine feels loud. Aiden steps out, boots crunching grit, and sees the man standing at the shoulder like someone paused mid-thought. No jacket, no fear, just stillness. Then Aiden notices the mark on the man's wrist, a perfect circle, smooth as glass, like the skin forgot how to heal normally. The man whispers without blinking. They are still watching. Aiden turns his flashlight toward the desert. A white sphere lifts off the sand behind him, silent, patient, and close enough that the beam of his light dies against it, like the night itself is being turned off. Aiden used to think night patrol was about drunk drivers and broken-down cars. Out here in the Mojave's dead air, the highway feels like a test range for something that doesn't need permission. And the strangest part is how calm it all tries to look, right up until it decides you've noticed. October 9th, just after midnight. Near the Zayak's turnoff, Aiden catches a lone white sphere the size of a basketball hovering 1 meter above the sand. No flicker, no heat, no shadow. It hangs there with the calm of something that doesn't need air to stay up. Miguel raises his phone and snaps 3 shots. The screen previews normal road, normal cruiser, normal desert. But every image that includes the sphere comes back as a solid black rectangle, like the camera is being told to forget that specific patch of space. Aiden sweeps it with his flashlight. The beam stops in midair, clean and absolute, as if it strikes a glass wall. No reflection, no flare, no spill on the sand. Just a hard cutoff that makes Aiden's stomach drop, because light is not supposed to be negotiable. He steps closer and reaches out. The sphere shifts 3 meters sideways in a blink. No wind up, no blur, no sound. Not dodging in panic. Correcting position, as if it's keeping a measured gap between them on purpose. Miguel circles to the left, trying to box it in. The sphere subtly rotates, always presenting the same face toward them, and Aiden realizes with a quiet jolt that it's not merely hovering, it's tracking, watching. Sergeant Kellerman arrives, takes one look, and goes still. He doesn't radio it in, he doesn't joke, he just tells them to write it down, keep it clinical, and get back on patrol. As they pull away, Aiden checks the mirrors until his eyes ache. The shoulder is empty again. The desert is ordinary again. But the silence inside the cruiser feels staged, like the night has been reset. And Aiden can't shake the certainty that whatever stood there a moment ago now knows exactly what their headlights look like when they turn back. 2 weeks of quiet, then October 23rd on Route 127. Aiden and Miguel spot the same white sphere hovering in the middle of the lane, shin high, perfectly still. They stop short and approach. At 10 feet, it slides backward at the exact pace they advance, keeping the distance like it's enforcing a rule. Miguel circles wide to flank it, and the sphere rotates to face him, calm and deliberate. Aiden raises his flashlight. The beam hits an invisible barrier again, but this time the cutoff curves, leaving a thin crescent of light hanging in midair like the road is being bent. Miguel mutters, his ears feel pressurized. The sphere starts to pulse in a slow rhythm. Aiden tastes metal. The radio turns to static, and beneath it comes a brief, layered tone that feels too close to the skull. They step back. The sphere holds for one last beat, then shoots straight up and vanishes. The radio clears. The night sound returns, and Aiden realizes the shift. It didn't just appear. It reacted. November 4th. Aiden keeps the cruiser centered on the lane lines while Miguel scans the shoulders for stranded drivers and deer eyeshine. The Mojave looks empty in the way deserts always lie, like the land is holding back a secret. Aiden notices the first change in the sound, not the sight. The engine hum becomes slightly thinner, like a note losing its depth. Then the cabin pressure feels off, a subtle squeeze behind the ribs, as if the air has weight. The dash lights dim, slow at first, then all at once. The radio drops into silence. The speedometer needle falls as the engine stutters once and dies completely. For a heartbeat, they are just rolling forward on momentum. Two men inside a dead car with no signal, no backup nearby, and too much darkness ahead. Miguel taps the console, then the radio mic, then swears under his breath. No response, no static. Nothing. Ahead, the road should be dark. It is not. 3 white spheres rise from behind the ridgeline like moons lifting from the ground. Each one is enormous, silent, and wrong. They move in a perfect triangle, slowing without any sense of braking, stopping at a distance that feels chosen with care. Miguel lifts his phone. The screen stays awake. The camera opens. The preview looks normal for a split second, then every frame turns blank, as if the lens is staring into a hole the sensor cannot translate. Aiden steps out. The air tastes metallic. A low vibration presses into his chest and teeth, not loud, not even really a sound, more like pressure that pulses in patterns. One sphere drifts forward and lowers until it hangs in front of the cruiser's hood. Its surface shifts. Geometric forms crawl under the skin, sliding like liquid metal made of light. Aiden feels an urge to look away, but his eyes refuse. His hand rests on his holster. It feels pointless, like a ritual object, not a tool. Miguel whispers that it is reading them. The nearest sphere stops moving. The vibration deepens, then collapses abruptly, as if a scan has finished and the machine has decided it has what it came for. The other 2 spheres lift in perfect timing. All 3 shoot straight up, faster than anything with mass should move, and vanish into the black. The cruiser jolts back to life. Engine on. Dash bright. Radio hiss returns like breath after a long hold. They do not speak for a moment. Aiden stares at the road, waiting for the next impossible thing to announce itself. Miguel keeps looking at the phone as if it might suddenly remember what it saw. Aiden turns the car around to head back toward the last marker. He tells himself it is procedure, that you do not keep driving through a place where the world can be switched off. Then the headlights catch a figure on the shoulder. A man standing perfectly still. Just a t-shirt and jeans in the cold. No bag, no vehicle, no reflective gear. He is positioned too neatly, like someone placed him there rather than someone who walked there. Aiden slows to a crawl. The man does not wave, does not flinch. He watches the cruiser approach with a face that seems unfinished, eyes focused but empty, like he is awake inside a dream that belongs to someone else. Aiden lowers the window. The desert air rushes in, sharper now, carrying a faint ozone bite. The man's lips move, his voice is quiet and flat, every word spaced evenly, like a recording trying to sound human. They are still watching. Aiden reaches for the door handle. The cabin lights flicker once. The radio pops with a short burst of static that sounds almost like a syllable. Aiden looks back at the shoulder. The man is gone. No footsteps in the sand. No direction he could have moved fast enough. Just emptiness where a living person should not be able to vanish. And then a few yards ahead, hovering at waist height in the headlight beam, a small white sphere appears. It hangs there perfectly still, not pulsing, not drifting, simply present, like a period at the end of a sentence. Miguel does not move. Aiden cannot blink. The sphere shifts sideways in a single instant, 3 meters, no glide, no arc, no inertia, like it is demonstrating a rule of its own physics. Aiden's radio hisses again, and for the smallest moment, he thinks he hears a word inside the noise, not a voice through the speaker, a word inside his head. Return. Aiden puts the car in drive and rolls forward, slow, controlled, eyes fixed on the road. Behind them, the desert stays silent, as if it is listening to how well they obey. Aiden never files the full report. He keeps one detail to himself, the word that wasn't on the radio but inside his skull: return. Miguel transfers to day shift. Aiden stays on nights, memorizing mile markers, watching the shoulders, waiting for the next quiet placement of something that does not belong on a human road. If you were Aiden, would you go back to that stretch on purpose, just once, to see what answers the dark gives you? What kind of light can hang inside heavy fog without diffusing, bend a spotlight beam like glass, and erase 12 minutes from a boat's GPS as if the water itself can edit time? And if a perfect white sphere is not illuminated but rendered, who is it meant to see when it appears over Puget Sound before sunrise? Logan Pierce had worked the Everett Harbor docks for 12 years, running a small fishing boat and trusting what could be checked, logged, and fixed. Engines, tide charts, weather windows, and hard numbers that did not care about belief. On November 8th last year, a canceled salmon charter left his boat fueled and ready, and Dylan Mercer, a calm marina maintenance worker with long sea experience, talked him into a quick run to check crab pots near Jetty Island. They cast off at 5:47 a.m. into thick fog and cold air, and Logan logged the time as always. But within minutes the sound felt staged. Because the harbor sounds vanished, birds were absent, and even the fog seemed too uniform, like a curtain pulled across the water for privacy. And before either man saw any light at all, Logan had the unwanted certainty that something out there had already noticed them and was waiting for them to enter the right piece of water. For the first 10 minutes, Logan navigated by memory and lights, listening to the steady pulse of his engine. Then the fog thinned in uneven sheets and the silence tightened, and Dylan touched Logan's shoulder and pointed ahead. At first, Logan assumed it was a headlight from another boat, but the light did not sway and did not jitter with water. It held position like a marker pinned into the air. A bright white point hovered in the fog about 200 yards ahead and roughly 20 feet above the surface. And when Logan raised binoculars, the shape resolved into a perfect white sphere with edges too sharp to belong in mist. The fog did not scatter its glow. There was no halo, no fall-off, just a clean circle that looked rendered rather than illuminated. And as Logan stared, he noticed the sphere was not merely bright, it was exact, as if it had been drawn by a system that preferred precision over nature. Then Logan saw the first alien cue that was not light at all. A faint geometric shimmer in the fog around the sphere, barely visible, like a grid line catching on moisture, and it moved in slow pulses that did not match wind or waves. Dylan said the air felt thick, and Logan realized the sphere was not an object floating in fog. It was an interface, and the fog was being used as a screen. When they closed to about 100 yards, Logan cut the engine and let the boat drift, and the depth finder read 80 feet with nothing between hull and bottom. No structure, no shadow, just open water under a thing that should not have been able to hold still in moving air. Logan raised a high-power handheld spotlight and fired the beam straight at the sphere, expecting glare, but the beam curved cleanly and wrapped around it as if space had turned to glass. And in the same instant, the fog around the sphere showed faint angular seams that pulsed once like a heartbeat, and Dylan whispered that his ears hurt even though there was still no sound. The sphere slid north with no wake and then snapped into a perfect 90-degree turn toward deeper water, and pressure slammed into Logan's chest like a silent bass hit while his teeth began to ache, and the console erupted into chaos, compass spinning, depth numbers jumping, GPS flipping between Everett and Canada as if the boat had been briefly relocated and returned. As the fog thinned, the sphere brightened like a signal marker and revealed what it had been hiding. A dark gray craft the size of a bus, but flatter, disc-like, seamless, with no windows and no joints. rotating toward them while faint scanning lines rippled across its underside, and the boat's lights dipped as if something was drawing power through the air. A wave of heat rolled through the cabin and into their bones. The air tasted metallic, and then the craft tilted to about 45 degrees and launched straight up into the cloud layer faster than Logan's eyes could hold, and the pressure vanished instantly. The electronics snapped back to normal, and the sound resumed its ordinary noises as if nothing had happened. They turned back toward the marina in silence because neither of them had language that fit what they had watched. And when Logan checked the clock, it read 6:14 a.m., only 27 minutes since departure, yet his body felt stretched as if hours had passed, and both men had red skin on their faces and forearms, like a severe sunburn, despite fog before sunrise. Logan searched for similar reports and found dozens from fishermen, pilots, and hikers reaching back years, all repeating the same elements with an accuracy that felt engineered. A flawless sphere that does not diffuse in mist, electronics failing in synchronized bursts, the air going unnaturally quiet, and time missing in clean blocks, and the repetition tightened into a single idea. This was a corridor with rules, not a random sighting. That afternoon, Logan noticed a perfect circle on his left wrist the size of a coin, pale and sharply defined as if drawn with a compass. And Dylan reported a matching circle on his neck under the jawline. And by morning, Dylan had 3 new circles on his forearm forming a perfect equilateral triangle, while Logan found new circles on his shoulder and collarbone with the same spacing. And when Logan tried to photograph them, the phone overexposed the marks into a bright white ring for a single frame, then returned to normal as if the pattern flared only for the sensor. They began documenting everything: clinic photos, time-stamped notes, instrument readings from the boat. But the more they recorded, the more the environment responded, because that night Logan felt the same pressure in his chest again with no sound attached. His boat compass swung several degrees on its own while the engine was off, and a faint white point appeared deep in the fog beyond the breakwater, steady and motionless, then split into 2 identical points for the length of one breath before merging and winking out. Dylan called a few minutes later, shaken, and said he had just heard Logan's voice on his phone telling him to meet at Jetty Island at first light, but Logan had not called. And when Dylan tried to replay the voicemail, the file existed yet contained only silence. And on Logan's navigation app, a new recent track appeared, a thin straight line from the marina to the jetty corridor, at a time his boat had never left the slip, followed by a clean blank span, matching the missing 12 minutes exactly, as if the corridor had learned how to write invitations in his own data. By the third night, the circles looked slightly brighter under dock lights, and at 5:47 a.m., Logan's logbook was open to a fresh page on the galley table, with the departure time written in his own handwriting, even though he had not picked up a pen. And when he went to find Dylan, the berth was empty and Dylan's truck was gone, but the gate camera showed nothing except a brief wash of white across the pavement and a single frame where the air looked gridded. And after that, Dylan stopped answering entirely, leaving Logan with a fate already partially unfolding, because the corridor was no longer waiting offshore. It was reaching into schedules, records, and people. In early December, Logan returned to the Jetty Island waterline alone, and the sound went quiet the moment he crossed the invisible boundary, and the depth finder showed a large object hovering at 60 feet where the bottom should have been 90. So he lowered a GoPro and saw curved brushed metal with no seams before the cable locked hard as if held. Then the feed collapsed into perfect black for the final 30 seconds, and his GPS flickered into another clean blank span. On the way back, a flawless white point hovered just above the water off his bow, and his spotlight beam curved around it exactly as before. And when Logan reached for the radio to call Dylan, the display showed Dylan already connected, yet only a thin layered cadence came through, steady and close, like counting. If the corridor can edit logs, voices, and departures, what exactly is left of choice? Comment your theory, then hit like and subscribe for the next case. What kind of light refuses to cast any shadow in fog? What kind of encounter deletes 32 minutes cleanly? And why did Hannah quit after hearing silence speak? Marcus Calloway worked WS. Nights for 11 steady years. He patrolled Highway 20 through the North Cascades darkness. He trusted culverts, chains, radios, and winter procedure. Halloween 2021 brought thick fog near mile marker 108. He and rookie Hannah Westfield checked drains beside the road. The forest felt muted, like it was holding its breath. Fog swallowed the slope near mile marker 108. Marcus saw blue light through the trees. Hannah assumed a flare. Marcus felt it was watching them. The glow stayed fixed as fog moved. It left no spill on wet leaves. It left no reflection on puddles. That absence made Marcus uneasy. They climbed carefully with flashlights held low. Boots slid on needles and slick moss. The air smelled metallic and cold. The forest sounded quieter than snow. The sphere appeared between trunks, perfectly centered. It hovered at chest height, motionless. It was about 3 feet wide. Its edge looked clean, almost drawn. Marcus aimed his beam at the sphere. The beam curved around it. The fog behind stayed unchanged. No shadow formed anywhere. Hannah stepped closer and stopped breathing. Her radio clicked once, then died. Marcus heard a thin hum in teeth. It felt like pressure without sound. The sphere pulsed brighter, then dimmer. Faint geometric lines appeared in fog. The lines formed a grid, then vanished. Marcus saw the hillside overlaid with other moments. He saw summer ferns replace winter needles. He saw charred trunks, then fresh saplings. He saw future headlights cutting new asphalt. Hannah whispered someone stood behind it. Marcus saw a tall, thin outline in fog. It moved without steps, then dissolved. The sphere remained patient and close. Marcus tried speaking, but words felt delayed. His watch froze on 1 minute. The truck lights down slope looked farther away. The sphere pulsed again, stronger now. A thought pushed into his mind. It showed caves under the mountain, glowing faintly. It showed slender figures moving in silence. Hannah grabbed Marcus and pulled hard. Her glove brushed fog beside the sphere. The air felt colder, like water. Her fingers went numb instantly. They backed downhill, never turning away. The hum followed them like an escort. The grid flickered once on Marcus's lens. They reached the truck and slammed doors. The cab clock jumped forward 32 minutes. Marcus checked logs and found a clean gap. Hannah stared into fog and started crying. Marcus hunted answers off duty, staying off station radios. He pulled night logs from sheds and old depots. Some pages were missing, yet staples stayed. Inked call signs were scrubbed into gray bruises. The gaps felt intentional, not sloppy bureaucracy. He found a recurring symbol in margin doodles. It looked like a triangle made of dots. Different hands drew it, years apart. Each time it sat near water-related notes, culverts, runoff ditches, creek bends, and spring seeps. The pattern felt like a warning, not folklore. Marcus drove Highway 20 alone and waited inside fog. The air grew heavy near a rock cut. His dash clock paused, then jumped 2 minutes. A pale blue shimmer rose over the ditch. It hovered without reflecting on wet asphalt. His flashlight beam bent, then wrapped around nothing. The shimmer pulsed and the forest went unnaturally quiet. Marcus heard a soft cadence under static, like counting. His radio lit up without transmitting any voice. The speaker returned his breathing, delayed by a beat. Frost formed fractal lines across his windshield edge. The lines traced angles, then locked into a grid. A tall, thin outline appeared inside the headlight glare. It moved without stepping across the ditch. Its shape stayed sharp inside drifting fog. Marcus saw long fingers touch nothing. Then air rippled. The grid on glass brightened, then vanished at once. His phone camera saved only black frames. Marcus backed away, never turning from the shimmer. The blue point followed, staying aligned with his cab. The engine stumbled, then steadied without his touch. The dash lights dipped in a synchronized beat. The cadence on radio paused, as if listening. Then it resumed with a new rhythm. Marcus returned home and found mud on boots, still frozen. His GPS history showed a route he never drove. A new waypoint sat over a creek bend. The label used his own typing style. Marcus understood the boundary, could write back. Marcus returned with Hannah, despite her earlier resignation papers. She said closure required one last drive. They chose November 21st, before closures worsened. Fog clung to trees near mile marker 115. The ditch water ran thin and black. 3 blue spheres appeared, forming a perfect triangle. The triangle held steady without drift. No shadow formed beneath any sphere. The air felt heavy and close. Their truck electronics died in one clean drop. The dash went dark, then stayed dark. Hannah's phone went black, then stayed black. GPS froze on a blank coordinate. Only the headlights stayed bright and steady. One sphere drifted closer, silent and smooth. It stopped beside the hood, perfectly centered. Marcus felt pressure behind his eyes. Hannah clutched her chest, breathing shallow and fast. A thought arrived without words or sound. Marcus saw 10,000 years of seasons. He saw glaciers retreat and forests return. He saw ancient fires, then silent regrowth. He saw hot vents under rock glowing faintly. Hannah whispered she saw someone inside the fog. Marcus saw deep thermal caves under ridgelines. He saw tall, slender figures in chambers. Their limbs looked too long for humans. Their eyes looked dark and unblinking. The spheres showed water channels under the highway. They showed culverts as access points. They showed drilling biting deep rock. They showed collapsed chambers and poisoned springs. Hannah tried to speak into the radio. The radio opened itself instead. A thin cadence came through, measured and close. It sounded like counting, then correcting. The cadence synced with the triangle's slow rotation. Fog around the spheres formed faint geometric seams. The seams connected into a grid for seconds. The grid slid across the windshield glass. It aligned with old etched frost lines. Hannah pressed her palm to the window. Frost fractals formed under her fingers instantly. Her hand stayed against the glass, unmoving. A tall, slender figure appeared beyond the ditch. It was not fully visible in fog. It looked like absence shaped into a body. It moved without stepping, then stopped. Marcus raised his flashlight toward it. The beam curved around empty air again. The figure lifted a hand with long fingers. The triangle tightened, shrinking its spacing slightly. The nearest sphere brightened like a signal marker. Hannah's breath fogged the glass, then stopped. Marcus called her name, but sound felt swallowed. Her outline blurred, then doubled in the headlight glare. For one heartbeat, two Hannahs overlapped. Then the passenger seat was empty. The seatbelt lay buckled, still warm. A blizzard hit without warning, drowning the road. A huge geometric structure settled onto the highway. Its edges looked sharp, then soft, then sharp. The structure hovered without sound or wind. The humanoid figure stepped out beside it. It stood tall and slender in blowing snow. It had long fingers with narrow joints. Its eyes looked black and almond-shaped. It did not speak with a moving mouth. The warning arrived inside Marcus's thoughts. We are not invaders. We live here. Respect this boundary or consequences follow. The figure raised one hand toward the forest. The spheres flashed once, then dimmed. Marcus saw ridgelines mapped in faint light. He saw triangle marks pulsing along drainage lines. Then everything shut down at once. The structure lifted without sound or wind. The spheres folded into one point and vanished. The blizzard noise returned in a rush. Marcus drove back alone, hands shaking on the wheel. He could not recall the next 10 miles. Hannah never clocked in again after that night. Her resignation file stayed unsigned, then vanished. Dispatch logs showed her truck never left the yard. Yet Marcus remembered her voice beside him. Marcus filed no report and kept private night logs. He searched ditches and culvert mouths at dawn. He found no tracks, no dropped gear, no answers. The boundary felt open, and it felt personal now. Did the spheres take Hannah, or copy her out of time? Tell me your theory, then hit like and subscribe. The Mojave went silent, and the CB line held its breath. A white sphere rose beside Lucas, watching without eyes. Then time snapped forward, as if someone skipped frames. Lucas had driven freight routes for 11 years. He hauled electronics across the Mojave at night. Interstate 40 felt endless, flat, and exposed. The cab smelled like diesel and hot wiring. The CB crackled with bored voices and dead air. That Thursday in October 2019, he left Victorville late. Needles waited far ahead in darkness. Near Daggett, the desert changed without warning. Wind died and the road sounded muted. Even the engine felt distant, like it was underwater. Lucas checked mirrors and saw nothing behind him. Around 11:15, wind dropped to nothing. The desert felt muted, like sound got absorbed. Lucas saw dust hang in beams, then fall straight down. The CB went quiet, then returned with thin hiss. A westbound rig passed, headlights flaring in fogless air. An unknown driver broke in on CB, voice tight. He said something sat on the road ahead. Lucas slowed his truck and kept both hands locked. The lane stripe glowed faintly under his beams. A pure white sphere rested on the stripe, perfectly round. It looked 4 feet wide, clean-edged and solid. It cast no shadow on pavement or lane paint. It gave off no heat shimmer at all. Lucas rolled closer, heart pounding behind ribs. The sphere lifted 2 feet, as if noticing him. It hovered without wobble, with a faint blue rim. The rim crackled like welding sparks, yet silent. Lucas raised his phone and filmed through the windshield. The screen showed glare, then sudden black. He kept filming, blinking through tears. The sphere remained bright outside, yet invisible to file. The hum began under tires, then inside his teeth. His chest tightened with each pulse, then released. The sphere jumped sideways without traveling. It snapped to a new spot, then back again. For 1 second, Lucas saw an outline beside it. It looked tall and slender, shaped from darkness. Long fingers hung too low, almost touching the stripe. The outline turned toward Lucas and held. Lucas threw the truck into gear and pulled away fast. Mirrors showed nothing chasing him, yet the hum followed inside the cab. At a truck stop, Lucas checked the receipt timestamp. His log time disagreed by more than an hour. The gap felt clean, like someone edited tape. 3 days later, the sphere returned near Lello at midnight. No wind moved, and the highway sounded padded and distant. Another driver called it in, voice shaking on CB. Lucas was nearby and turned back to confirm. The white sphere hovered above the center stripe again. Its blue rim flickered, then steadied like a held spark. Lucas filmed through glass, keeping his hands visible. The playback showed empty asphalt and dark horizon. The sphere split into 2 matching spheres, clean and silent. They separated without traveling through the space between. Chest pressure hit Lucas in 2 alternating pulses. The hum vibrated the seat frame and steering column. A tall, slender outline appeared between the 2 lights. It looked too narrow to be human. Long fingers unfolded, then folded again, slowly. The outline faced Lucas, then dissolved into the glow. Lucas checked his dash clock and felt sick. 90 minutes were missing, cleanly removed. By late October, drivers reported spheres across the Mojave segment. They described shadowless light resting on lane stripes. Some described silent arcs above ridgelines, swapping positions instantly. One driver recorded from his cab near Amboy. The video showed an empty road, despite blinding light outside. On November 17th, the northern horizon flared white in waves. The waves rolled without sound across distant ridges. Lucas stopped with other trucks and watched, frozen. Dozens of spheres formed a curved lattice in the sky. A few tall figures stood on the shoulder line, motionless. Their black eyes reflected no headlights at all. When Lucas moved again, 4 hours were missing. A month later, Dustin drove the shortcut again after midnight. The air went still near the same mile stretch. Temperature dropped fast inside the cab. The engine died cleanly, without any struggle. 2 spheres appeared first, then 4 more. They formed a wide arc around the truck. Tall figures stepped from the dim glow quietly. More figures followed, lining the shoulder and median. They were thin, too tall, and perfectly balanced. Their heads were elongated and smooth. Their eyes were black and almond-shaped. Their skin looked pale gray with a matte, wet sheen. Long fingers flexed with narrow-jointed segments. They moved with smooth, efficient precision. One figure stood in the lane, centered in headlights. It raised a hand, and Dustin stopped breathing. The hum pressed into his ribs in steady pulses. Frost flowered again across the windshield in fractal geometry. Symbols formed within the frost, drawn by hovering fingertips. A voice entered his mind, cold and exact. "You are marked, you will remember." The figures stepped closer without footfalls. They surrounded the cab like a quiet ring. Dustin watched a finger point at his chest. Another finger pointed at his throat. Another finger pointed at his forehead. The spheres brightened once, then dimmed to a low glow. The dashboard clock froze, then jumped ahead in blocks. Dustin woke at a rest stop, shaking hard. 6 hours were missing from receipts and device logs. His cab smelled like ozone and cold metal. His tongue tasted like pennies for hours. The hum lingered behind his eyes all day. A quiet research circle found him through trucker channels. They asked for his receipts and dash logs. They shared reports and symptom lists in plain envelopes. They warned him to avoid mirrors after encounters. Many witnesses had headaches, tinnitus, and memory gaps afterward. Some had triangular scars in mirrored placement. Some heard tones in teeth for weeks. Some saw doubles in reflective glass. One man forgot his own address for days. During a fourth encounter, 6 spheres formed a ring over desert ground. The ring opened like an iris without any sound. 5 or 6 entities appeared inside the opening. They stood taller than before, with longer arms. Their fingers fanned wider, counting invisible measures. A sequence of images hit Dustin without warning. He saw grids of roads and moving vehicles. He saw human faces fading into blank calm. He saw a boundary folding between places. The entities sent one clear concept into his mind. Time is ending. Choice is required. The hum became a heavy pressure, then weightlessness. 2 days later, Dustin woke in a Las Vegas hospital. He remembered a beam and a falling sensation. Doctors found fine white dust in his clothes. His phone held black frames and broken time codes. After that, encounters stopped for 6 months. Then Nevada lost power statewide for 47 minutes. Darkness hit like a curtain across every ridge. The hum returned inside Dustin's teeth immediately. 2 white spheres appeared above his street, shadowless. Tall figures stood between parked cars, perfectly still. A cold voice entered his mind, calm and final. The choice is now. Neighbors later reported his porch light blinking without power. A door camera saved only black frames that night. When power returned, Dustin was gone. His truck sat idling in the driveway, warm. The driver door hung open, swinging slowly. No footprints marked the dust outside. His receipts folder lay on the seat, neatly stacked. The last note inside read 47, then stopped. No one confirmed where Lucas went after Nevada that week. Dispatch showed normal pings, then sudden blank gaps. His phone never rang again afterward. His last log ended mid-sentence, then stopped. If spheres follow you home, what comes next? Do they erase, replace, or relocate witnesses? Share your theory, then like and subscribe for the next case. A faceless alien blocked the canyon trail and watched Elliot run. White UFO spheres split above the crazy mountains in perfect geometry. Patricia screamed for help, but the voice moved without a body. Elliot served search and rescue in the crazy mountains for 8 years. He carried ropes, radios, and trauma kits through brutal weather. He knew panic, injuries, and bad luck on cliffs. Nothing matched the call about Patricia Romano, age 53. She vanished during a cold November hike. Elliot deployed with Mara, a veteran rescuer. They expected exposure and confusion, not non-human hunters. Search and rescue called Elliot at dusk. Patricia Romano vanished near Crazy Mountains. Elliot drove in with Mara, headlamps cutting fog. Cold wind dragged across pines like whispering cloth. Patricia's boot prints led north between rocks and snow crust. The trail narrowed into a dead valley. A woman's plea echoed from ahead. The words sounded flat, like a recorded loop. The voice jumped farther in seconds. No human could move that fast. Elliot called Patricia's name and heard it echoed back. The echo matched his tone, but felt wrong. Mara stopped and listened, tense and pale. The valley felt staged, like a trap waiting patiently. Air pressure dropped and Elliot's ears rang hard. A white UFO sphere hovered above the treetops. It descended straight down, silent and steady. Elliot's GPS died and his compass spun wildly. His watch froze at 4:47 p.m. The sphere split into dozens of smaller spheres. They formed clean geometric rows over the valley. A fake helicopter thump started, then cut off. Faceless aliens appeared along the trail, evenly spaced. One alien blocked the path, arms too long. Its smooth face had no features, only black eyes. It copied Mara's voice, begging from behind them. Another copied Patricia's voice, crying from farther ahead. The aliens did not chase, yet distance felt stolen. Elliot and Mara climbed toward a rock ledge. Below, more aliens moved under spheres like stage lights. The spheres pulsed together, matching the hum inside Elliot's ribs. Elliot looked down and saw a staged formation, perfectly rehearsed. When they reached the ridge, the valley light was gone. The UFO spheres vanished, like someone flipped a switch. The faceless aliens vanished too, leaving blank snowfields. Wind slammed back into pines with a sudden roar. Snow began falling again, loud and painfully normal. Elliot checked his watch and felt nausea rise. 3 hours were missing from his shift log and memory. His legs still burned from climbing through frozen scree. Mara said her last minutes felt cut from film. She remembered pulses, black eyes, and a humming corridor. She could not recall the final climb to safety. Elliot remembered an alien watching, closer than his headlamp. He also remembered the scream moving, never losing breath. Their radios now played static with a slow breathing rhythm. The ridge camera showed only darkness, despite clear moonlight. At daylight, Mara returned anyway, driven by missing time. Elliot stayed above, scanning for spheres in open sky. Mara found geometric cuts in dirt, stone, and crusted snow. The shapes repeated circles, angles, and nested lines. Near a dry creek, she found a dull metal shard. It stayed cold in sunlight, like it rejected heat. She bagged it, and her phone screen flickered blue. Every photo saved then turned into white static instantly. Video files became black frames with skipping timestamps. Her compass pointed downhill, then spun, then died. The recorded scream returned again, flat, empty, and precise. It jumped from cliff to tree within seconds. A fake helicopter thump began, then stopped mid-beat. White spheres reappeared briefly, forming a grid above her. Faceless aliens stood between trunks, watching her without blinking. Mara ran out, and the valley looked normal behind her. Elliot understood the valley wanted rescuers, not lost hikers. It wanted witnesses it could edit, erase, and replace. They returned with stronger radios and brighter floodlights. Air pressure dropped again. Elliot's ears rang hard. White UFO spheres appeared above both ridges. More spheres split off in silence. They formed a perfect grid overhead. The grid rotated above the valley. Each sphere pulsed every 3 seconds. Faceless aliens stood along the slopes. They were evenly spaced and silent. Their blank faces swallowed light. Several lifted long arms and pointed downhill. Patricia's scream returned without breath. The scream jumped farther within seconds. A helicopter thump started. It stopped mid-beat. The spheres pulsed together again. The hum pressed into Elliot's teeth. Mara moved first, drawn by the moving scream. Elliot followed, watching the grid tighten overhead. Snow stopped falling inside the valley bowl. Breath fog thinned, then vanished in cold air. His compass spun, then pointed straight down. His GPS rebooted with impossible coordinates. Radio hiss carried slow breathing between static bursts. Faceless aliens appeared between trees. They vanished without sound. They reappeared closer with no footprints. A second scream copied Mara's voice. It switched to Patricia's voice mid-word. Elliot heard footsteps that never touched snow. The ridgeline aliens watched without turning. Mara found a cave entrance masked by loose rock. The tunnel felt polished and unnaturally smooth. Glowing symbols crawled along walls in repeating grids. The symbols blinked in 3-second cycles. Dark cables ran through stone in branching paths. Small spheres drifted ahead. They lit paths without shadows. Faceless aliens stood in alcoves, still and upright. Some carried pulsing orbs the size of fists. The orbs blinked with Elliot's breathing rhythm. One alien raised 3 fingers. The symbols brightened instantly. Another alien turned its head. The hum changed pitch immediately. Elliot felt the ceiling press lower. Patricia lay deeper inside, alive and shaking. Her eyes fixed on empty air. Parallel marks lined her wrists in perfect pairs. A metal door opened silently into a bright chamber. Mara lay on a metal table, unmoving and pale. Glowing tracks ran along her skin in precise geometry. Faceless aliens surrounded her, hands hovering, never touching. One alien faced Elliot. The hum sharpened into a drilling tone. Another copied Patricia's voice from the corridor. The copied voice begged softly. Then it laughed in the same tone. A sphere hovered above Mara, pulsing as a timer. Symbols covered the walls, then wiped clean. Mara's glowing lines flared once, then dimmed. Elliot grabbed Patricia and ran into darkness. Distance stretched around them. The floor felt longer each step. A doorway of light opened ahead. It folded shut again. Frost flowered on the walls. It vanished instantly. Elliot climbed through a ceiling break with Patricia. They surfaced under stars, far from the valley mouth. Mara was not with them. They were 5 miles away. No trail led back. The live feed saved only black frames. Patricia stared past Elliot's shoulder. She covered her ears at static. Her hands trembled, then went still. Elliot called Mara on every channel. Only hiss answered. Mara's phone pinged once at midnight. The ping came from the valley. At dawn, her truck sat unlocked. The cab was empty. 3 days later, Mara reappeared at her porch. She stood motionless and barefoot. Thin lines glowed under her skin. She would not speak. Her eyes tracked something unseen, cameras filled with white noise nightly. The next morning, her front door swung open. Mara was gone again. No footprints marked snow. Elliot prepared a final return alone. He split his stream to servers in 3 states. White spheres rose from trees at shoulder height. Faceless aliens formed a line across his path. One alien touched his lens with 3 fingers. Symbols flashed across glass. They sank into blackness. The grid tightened overhead. It closed without any sound. His stream froze on white static everywhere at once. After that, only humming remained inside Elliot's files. Elliot entered the valley again as a witness, not prey. The live stream ran for 13 minutes. White spheres appeared above him and split into a grid. Faceless aliens stepped into frame and surrounded him silently. Then the feed froze on white static and never returned. Was the valley a trap, a lab, or a border gate? Did Elliot save truth or trade himself for it? Tell your theory below, then like and subscribe for the next case. Ellie saw a blue ring open above the surf, an alien face pressed against the light, watching her blink. More rings formed a square, and the ocean went mute. Ellie worked night patrol along the Texas shoreline. She logged tides, trespassers, and broken buoys. That night the coast felt staged and emptied. Even waves sounded distant like muffled breath. Backup arrived with a camera and spare batteries. They expected smugglers but found a scheduled arrival. Blue light hovered 3 feet above the tide line. It formed a clean circle 6 feet wide with an edge too sharp for mist. It threw no glow onto the water, not even a faint smear. Ellie stepped closer and felt pressure climb behind her ears. The halo slid against the current, leaving no wake, no ripple, no disturbed foam. A second halo appeared 50 yards downshore, then a third, evenly spaced. They held position like survey markers, then snapped into a perfect square with one synchronized blink. Each ring flashed 3 beats, then a long pause, repeating like a coded metronome. The beach wind stopped inside the square, yet Ellie still felt cold moving across her skin. Sand grains froze mid-drift near her boots, then fell straight down like the air had changed density. Her radio popped once with a short burst of clipped static, then fell into dead silence. The backup officer's camera kept recording, yet the live screen showed only empty shoreline and ordinary surf. Ellie looked back up, and the rings were still there, bright as welding arcs, refusing to appear on the feed. She raised her flashlight toward the nearest ring and watched the beam bend sideways, curving as if wrapped around invisible glass. The ring brightened, then sank into deep indigo. Shapes crawled across its surface like living geometry, angles collapsing into new angles. Something stood inside the circle, tall and narrow, too clearly shaped to be glare. It looked like an alien, not a trick of fog. Limbs hung too long, elbows bending in wrong places. Its head tilted, smooth and unreadable, and 2 dark almond eyes held steady on Ellie. A thin mouth line opened, but no sound came out. Ellie felt a cold mind press against her thoughts. Not emotion, just presence and measurement. Images hit her in a burst. Ocean trenches like black wounds, earth from far above, then distant structures suspended over water. Her heartbeat slowed, forced into the ring rhythm. The backup officer spoke, but Ellie could not hear the words. The world dimmed, as if someone lowered every sound and color at once. The ring pulsed once, brighter than the others, and darkness dropped like a curtain. When sight returned, Ellie's clock read 12:17. 90 minutes were missing from her memory, cleanly cut out. The square formation was gone. The backup officer's camera card held nothing but fresh, empty space, as if the night never happened. Ellie did not get a second first encounter. She got aftermath. Before the rings returned, the shoreline infrastructure began failing in a pattern that felt planned. Buoy strobes went dark in sequence from west to east. Tide sensors reported normal numbers, while the waterline climbed anyway. Her radio picked up a low 3-beat thump beneath every channel, like a sonar pulse pressed into static. The backup officer filmed the horizon. Then the camera battery drained from full to 0 in 1 minute. A blue glint appeared offshore. Not a halo this time, but a vertical seam of light rising from the water like a blade. The seam widened and revealed a hard-edged craft hovering inches above the surface, smooth and jointless, reflecting nothing. Under it, the ocean flattened into a perfect circle. Ellie saw aliens on the craft's underside, hanging as if gravity belonged to them, their long limbs folded tight, their eyes fixed on the rig. No ring framed them, no glow softened them. They were simply there, exposed and deliberate. Rig 7 went quiet again, but differently. Lights did not fail first. Sound failed first. The platform's generator vibration continued, yet the noise vanished, like someone removed the air that carries it. Ellie climbed the access stairs and felt her lungs working in a silent world. In the control room, the monitors were on, but no longer showed squares. They showed a rotating wireframe map of the rig, layers peeling back to reveal pipes and tanks like an X-ray. Symbols flowed over the map in tight streams, pausing at valves, joints, and weld seams. The 6 workers stood arranged in a neat line facing the sea, eyes open, hands lowered, breath shallow. An alien stepped onto the deck without climbing, as if it had been placed there between frames. Its skin looked slick and dark, with a faint blue sheen. 3 fingers touched a railing, and frost spread in branching geometry, then stopped at a perfect boundary. Ellie felt a message press into her mind. Not friendly, not hostile, just directive. Keep distance, keep watching, keep recording. The backup officer raised the camera and the screen filled with blue noise, but Ellie's eyes stayed clear. The alien turned its head toward her and held eye contact too long. The deck lamps flickered once, then returned. The workers blinked together and came back with empty minutes. Ellie looked down and saw wet footprints on dry steel, each print shaped like a narrow hand. Reports spread along the coast within days. Blue halos appeared near piers, channels, and open water. Each sighting followed a route, never random. The rings always formed squares or hex grids. Aliens were seen inside them, watching quietly. They never chased, yet people felt guided, pulled by the geometry. Ellie began collecting timestamps and distances. She compared tide charts to the pulse rhythm. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats, pause. The rhythm aligned with the ocean more than clocks. Some nights, the rings drifted against the current again, as if rejecting local physics. Water around them stayed unnaturally still, a calm disk inside moving surf. Fish surfaced belly up near the edge, then rolled and swam away unharmed, as if stunned and released. The rings started appearing in larger sets. 4 became 16, 6 became 36. They arranged into lanes offshore, like traffic patterns only they could see. When Ellie drove parallel to those lanes, her headlights seemed to lose brightness inside the glow. Her radio hissed in measured pulses. The backup officer's camera continued failing in the same way, showing normal darkness where Ellie saw indigo light. Ellie began to understand the rings were not just light. They were a filter, deciding what could be recorded. On October 15th, the sea began glowing everywhere. The glow spread across miles of water like ink in reverse, rising instead of sinking. A dome lifted from the surface, a mile high, formed without splash and without falling drops. Inside the dome, thousands of halos hovered in rows. Aliens stood within them like sentries, repeating posture, repeating distance, repeating the same 3-finger sign. The dome's inner surface looked like a curved screen, showing shifting geometric maps that mirrored the coastline. A message entered minds along the shore. It felt shared, not spoken, and it arrived with images instead of sentences. Earth from above, lit lines of cities, deep ocean trenches, then unfamiliar habitats built into water and air. The message carried a choice: join a wider order or remain isolated. Some people collapsed crying without knowing why. Some people walked toward the water and stopped at the tide line as if held there by invisible rules. When the dome fell, it left blue crystals scattered on beaches. Each crystal hummed faintly near human skin. Ellie touched one and felt her thoughts sharpen. She began hearing patterns inside radio noise. She began recognizing the 3-beat rhythm in ordinary sounds. The backup officer touched one and began drawing grids compulsively, as if compelled to map the rings. Both of them dreamed of the dome every night, always waking at the same minute. After that, Ellie's patrol notes became fragmented and obsessive. The backup officer vanished from all records, as if never employed. Blue halos still appear when the tide turns wrong. If aliens offer a choice, who decides the price? Comment your theory, like, and subscribe for more Shoreline Files. At 2:31, 2 low UFO lights split above the desert. Marcus Holland's voice turned metallic, then stopped sounding human. Unit 9 found his truck running, and something watched from darkness. Marcus Holland patrolled alone along the reserve's broken service trails. He knew the desert by radio calls, gates, and mile markers. Dispatch heard him nightly, a steady voice in dead air. Some nights, the air answered back with tones nobody owned. Older agents joked about missing minutes near that horizon line. Holland never joked, and he never chased lights without proof. Then at 2:17, he checked in like nothing waited ahead. Holland rolled the service trail at a steady crawl. The moonless desert looked carved from charcoal. Headlights cut 2 narrow tunnels through scrub. The fence line vanished outside their reach. His radio carried routine checks and calm replies. Then the background hiss began pulsing. It rose and fell like controlled breathing. He tapped the speaker and checked the mic. The pulse stayed perfectly timed. He switched channels and returned to base. The pulse followed him across every band. He muted the radio and it continued faintly. The cab air felt heavy and dry. His ears popped with sudden pressure. His eyes watered for no reason. The windshield tingled with static. Sand beside the trail stopped drifting. Distant brush stopped moving, despite steady wind earlier. Even his engine sounded slightly muted. The dash clock ticked, then stalled briefly. It resumed without explanation. The minute hand jumped forward, then corrected itself. He checked the glove box watch, and it disagreed. He swallowed and tasted metal in his mouth. At 2:31, he called dispatch with urgency. He reported an orange-white object ahead. It hovered low at the horizon line. It sat about 50 feet above sand. It did not drift with wind at all. The brightness looked clean and sharp. No glow touched the ground below. The stars behind it looked dimmer, like swallowed light. Holland said it was not a plane. Holland said it was not a flare. He said it felt too close for distance. His next sentence sounded wrong. A metallic ring wrapped each word. A hollow echo followed half a beat later. Some consonants doubled with exact timing. Static climbed behind his voice, then dropped. Holland said the object brightened again. He said the air tasted like pennies. He said his chest felt squeezed. He said the trail markers looked warped. He said his mirrors showed a darker sky. He asked if dispatch heard breathing. Dispatch heard it and stayed silent. Holland said the sound matched his own exhale. Holland followed the object by truck only. He never opened the door. The glow slid along the trail ahead. It stayed just beyond his headlights. It moved like it knew the path. He slowed and it slowed too. He sped up and it pulled away. It kept the same distance, measured and calm. The radio pulse grew louder each minute. His phone screen dimmed, then died. His dash clock flashed 2:31 repeatedly. The engine sounded normal, yet the truck felt heavy. The steering wheel tugged toward the glow. His mirrors showed empty darkness behind. Yet he felt close company. The light split into 2 identical orbs overhead. They held 30 feet apart, perfectly level. Holland said the truck slowed by itself. His foot stayed off the brake. The orbs brightened until sand looked colorless. The air inside the cab turned icy. His breath fogged and hung too long. His window glass grew a thin frost edge. A darker mass formed inside the glow. A tall figure stepped down onto the trail. It stood beside his hood, silent and still. Long arms hung too low, joints too narrow. A smooth head tilted toward him. Large black eyes held the cab like a lock. The figure raised one hand toward the glass. The gesture looked like invitation forward. Holland said it wanted him closer. He gripped the wheel until knuckles hurt. The hum pressed into his teeth. The orbs rotated in place, perfectly synchronized. The figure moved without footfall sound. It slid one step, then another, unreal smooth. It stopped at the passenger window line. The black eyes stayed on his face. Holland felt his tongue go numb. His radio hiss became a tight grid of clicks. The clicks matched a counting rhythm. His dash lights dimmed, then flared. His cabin temperature dropped again. He tried to speak and choked. He stayed seated and stared forward. The figure angled its head as if listening. The orbs pulsed, then pulsed again. His heartbeat matched their timing. The windshield briefly showed faint geometric seams. They looked etched into the air itself. Holland whispered a warning, but static swallowed it. Then his signal collapsed into patterned static. Unit 9 arrived at 3:04 to a running truck. Headlights stayed on and steady. The engine idled without changing tone. Doors stayed locked from the outside. The trail looked undisturbed around the tires, no footprints crossed the sand nearby, no brush was bent near the doors. The cab looked empty from every window angle. Their radios carried the same pulsing hiss. They circled the truck with flashlights and radios. Their beams found nothing under the chassis. The hood was cold to touch. The mirrors were frosted in thin lines. The windshield showed faint condensation shapes. The shapes looked like angular symbols. They shifted when lights moved across glass. They forced the lock and opened the door. The seat was empty and belts lay untouched. The cab air felt colder than outside. A faint smell of ozone clung inside. The radio speaker hissed in slow pulses. The pulse matched the earlier cadence. Unit 9 called Holland's name into the empty cab. The speaker answered with a metallic chirp. The chirp repeated on perfect intervals. It sounded like a reply without language. Their dash camera recorded, then froze. The frozen frame showed a faint orange smear. Then the camera resumed with nothing visible. Unit 9 searched outward along the trail edge. Their light swept brush and stones. The desert went too quiet again. Even the idling engine sounded distant. A faint orange shimmer hovered farther down trail. It blinked out without movement. Their radios crackled with clipped bursts. The bursts repeated on exact intervals. It felt like someone counting. The air pressed on their ears again. They found Holland behind a low berm. He lay face down and unmoving. His arms were tucked under his chest. His skin felt cold, yet he breathed steadily. No drag marks cut the sand behind him. No footprints led away from the truck. It looked like he fell straight down. His patrol cap sat beside his hand. It was perfectly clean of sand. His boots had no grit on them. They lifted him, and he jolted awake suddenly. His eyes stayed wide and glassy. His jaw moved with stiff precision. He spoke in a metallic voice for long seconds. The same phrase repeated with perfect timing. Each repetition carried less human rhythm. His breath did not match his words. It sounded like an instrument reading him. His head turned toward the horizon. He stared at nothing and trembled. Then his face softened, and he blinked hard. His normal voice returned like a switch flipped. He asked why they moved his truck. He denied leaving the driver's seat at all. He insisted the last marker was 62. He remembered a low glow ahead. He remembered turning toward the passenger window. He remembered nothing after that. He started shivering and could not stop. Holland lost 35 minutes and refused every question. Unit 9 was ordered to stay quiet. The audio was stored off network. What spoke through Holland when the orbs hovered overhead? Comment your theory, then like and subscribe. A UFO dropped onto Highway 95 and pinned Mason's cruiser. An alien voice entered his skull and said his name. A burning circle appeared on his arm, perfectly centered. Mason Alvarez worked quiet nights for the Nye County Sheriff's Office. Tonopah's highway miles felt endless, empty, and too exposed. Calls were usually stranded cars, drunk drivers, and lost tourists. This winter, the calls started clustering around one stretch. Mile numbers repeated, and witnesses repeated the same fear. Mason kept logs because memory felt unreliable out there. Mason arrived to mile 112 and found the car already defeated. No hazards blinked, no interior light glowed, no phone screen lit. The driver stood outside, breathing hard, eyes fixed above the roofline. She kept repeating the same detail, a white ring hovering above her roof. She described a low hum that pressed into her ribs, then her phone died. She said the engine died next, perfectly clean, like a switch. Mason stepped closer and felt the air change around the vehicle. His radio clicked, then fell into blank silence. His flashlight beam hit the ring's underside and curved away. The ring was bright, yet the ground beneath stayed dark. No spill, no reflection, no shadow, just a bright shape refusing physics. The ring slid sideways without drifting, perfectly level in wind. Concentric shapes flickered inside it, rotating like gears made of light. The driver whispered it was watching, not shining. Mason saw frost form along the Civic's windows in thin lines, then vanish. The hum rose until his teeth ached, then dropped in one clean beat. The ring snapped upward and vanished without trail or sound. The Civic restarted instantly, like power returned from a hidden hand. Mason inspected the roof and found a perfect circle imprint. Concentric bands looked machined, too sharp for heat damage. The metal stayed warm in freezing air. as if it remembered contact. Tire marks nearby looked liquefied into glossy ridges. Gravel had fused into tiny glassy beads near the shoulder. Mason photographed everything, but his images looked hollowed, like detail had been scraped away. He tried filming the roof, and the screen turned black mid-frame. He wrote a report with only hard facts, then sealed the evidence. The next nights turned the corridor into a pattern. Mason started patrolling mile 110 through mile 114 in slow loops. He stopped relying on electronics and carried paper notes. He marked every report time by wristwatch, then compared it later. Drivers called in with the same fear, but different shapes. Some saw rings hovering inches above asphalt. Some saw discs holding position beyond the median. Some saw paired lights moving like mirrored twins. Mason began seeing the lights himself, distant at first, then closer. They held position for minutes, then jumped without travel, like frames missing. His cruiser clock froze, then caught up in a stutter. His radio produced not static, but counted silence, a pulse that felt deliberate. One night, 3 rings aligned above Highway 95 and blinked in sequence. A 4th ring rose from the desert floor and joined them with perfect spacing. They glided along the corridor like they were reading mile markers. Mason watched them pause over certain points, then drift on again. The ground beneath stayed dark, denying any reflection. The hum returned whenever they stopped, pressing behind his eyes. Mason found small physical hints afterward: warm spots in gravel, thin glassy patches, concentric scuffs on metal guardrail posts. None of it looked like fire or impact. It looked like precision contact. He started leaving a small stone at each warm spot, then returned later to find stones moved. Not thrown, not scattered, just shifted into faint arcs. The corridor no longer felt random. It felt surveyed, measured, and revisited. Near midnight on a later loop, a disc crossed low over the asphalt and stopped above the shoulder. A ring detached and hovered near Mason's hood. Inside it, a tall silhouette appeared for a second, then blurred, then appeared again, as if the air could not decide. Mason felt his breath shorten without effort. The silhouette moved with smooth, economical motion, like it knew exactly where to stand. The ring brightened once, dimmed once, like a breath. Then the disc lifted and vanished, taking the hum with it. Mason realized the corridor was not being haunted. It was being worked. On January 24th, Mason drove the corridor alone again. The air thickened, like a storm without wind. His dash clock froze, then jumped backward twice. His radio clicked, went dead, returned mute, then died again. The hum arrived heavy and close, pressing into his ribs. Headlights dimmed, recovered, dimmed again. A disc formed beside the highway, matching his speed precisely. Its surface looked like liquid metal holding a rigid shape. No seams showed, and no heat shimmer appeared. A white ring detached and hovered near his window, perfectly steady. Inside the ring, an alien silhouette became distinct, then stepped forward without touching ground. The alien looked tall, thin, and unnaturally balanced. Its head was elongated and smooth with black almond eyes. Its mouth was a thin line, almost absent. Its fingers were long and jointed, too many angles for comfort. The cabin temperature dropped sharply, and Mason's muscles stiffened. His hands locked on the wheel, his jaw clenched, his voice failed. An alien voice entered his skull, calm and exact. It said Mason Alvarez without hesitation, then called him a witness. It said he was recorded, like a label being applied. The alien raised a hand toward the windshield. Frost-like symbols flashed across the glass, then vanished. Mason saw images flood behind his eyes, grids of light over desert, rings hovering over roads, people standing still under bright circles. He saw multiple aliens moving between them with careful, indifferent motion. He saw the corridor drawn like a map, then folded like paper. Time began skipping in chunks around the cruiser. Headlights appeared behind him, vanished, returned closer, vanished again. The disc paced him through each skip without effort. The ring hovered above his hood, perfectly centered, as if aligning. The alien leaned closer, studying his face like a specimen. Heat bloomed across Mason's left forearm. A concentric target mark formed, red and centered, the skin around it tight and hot. The alien voice repeated one word, recorded, like confirming a file name. Then the ring brightened hard and the hum peaked. Mason felt pain spike behind his eyes and down his spine, sharp and electrical. The world went thin for a moment, like it lost depth. When the pressure dropped, the disc was gone. The highway looked normal again, but Mason's hands still trembled. His dash clock had advanced farther than it should have. His patrol route line on paper no longer matched the mile signs he remembered. Later, unmarked vehicles arrived without introductions. They handled the corridor like a known procedure, walking straight to the warm spots, pointing without speaking. They tried fitting a wrist device onto Mason's arm, calling it monitoring. Mason refused, and the refusal felt meaningless. That night, 8 discs returned in a rigid grid above the corridor. Multiple rings hovered at equal spacing overhead. Several alien silhouettes appeared inside separate rings, watching him in silence. Their voices overlapped inside Mason's skull, sharp and synchronized, accusing and precise. A blue beam struck the wrist device and melted it instantly. The beam never touched Mason's skin, only the device, as if correcting ownership. The grid lifted and vanished, leaving ozone and a deeper silence than before. Mason quit soon after and stopped sleeping in full cycles. He still hears the hum during empty road drives. What does a witness become after an alien records them? Comment your theory, then like and subscribe. October 14th. Grant finds a dark blue Ford F-250. It sits alone on a rocky ledge. The driver door hangs wide open. The key is still in the ignition. The radio hisses with white noise. A calm male voice repeats one warning: do not look up at the sky. The ranch sits east of Laramie, about 30 miles out. Grant Avery runs a small spread there. He is checking fence lines that afternoon. A wildlife biologist walks with him. They spot the truck from far away. It is parked with careful precision. Yet the location makes no sense. The nose points due north. There is no road, there is no trail. Only brushland runs to the horizon. Grant climbs up the rock. He studies the dashboard. The headlight switch is set to on. He follows the angle of the beams. At night, the lights would aim skyward. They would point toward a distant ridge. One outcrop looks like a broken tooth. Grant calls the sheriff office. Deputies arrive before sunset, then another unit joins them. They photograph the Ford and the ledge. They tag the tire tracks below. They scan the brush with lights kept low. No prints lead to the door. No trail leads away. A deputy leans into the cab without sitting down. The key is still in the ignition. The seat is clean. The floor mat has no new grip. The radio never settles. The calm voice repeats the same sentence, steady and patient. They decide to hold the scene through the night. 2 units park below the rock with engines off. They watch the open door in a handheld scope, then switch to thermal. The cab stays cold and empty. Near midnight, the static changes cadence. The pauses between repeats stretch longer. Everyone feels pressure in their ears, like a storm building. A faint hum rises from the ground and fades. Around 3:17, the Ford headlights flicker once, as if they breathe. Nobody touches the switch. The open door does not move, yet the beams tremble in place. At dawn, Grant climbs back up with the deputies. The inside of the windshield is suddenly covered in dense writing. Every line says the same thing: do not look up at the sky. The marks look fresh, with uneven strokes and crowded lines. A deputy tries to rub one word with a glove. It does not smear. It feels set into the glass. Someone tries to take photos. One phone camera freezes on a black screen. Another captures a single frame of pale light and then crashes. Nobody says what they think it resembles. More people arrive as word spreads. By late afternoon, one volunteer does not return from the brush. His radio clicks once, then plays the warning on a loop. They find boot prints that end in bare dirt with no next step. Night brings more vehicles. A second truck appears along a dry wash. A sedan turns up on a dirt turnout. An ATV sits by a fence gate. Each one matches the pattern. Door open, key in place, radio warning, headlights aimed upward. Grant becomes a staging point. Deputies, volunteers, and neighbors rotate through his ranch. They tape windows, aim lights at the ground, and repeat the rule out loud. Eyes down, then people begin to vanish. A deputy walks behind a barn and never returns. A volunteer reaches into a cab to shut off a radio and is simply gone. The door stays open. The key stays in place. On the third night, power cuts out across the ranch. Phones glitch. Floodlights die. A truck rolls into the yard without an engine sound. Its headlights snap on and rake the roofline. A porch voice calls Grant's name in a missing deputy voice and repeats the warning. Panic breaks the group. One volunteer lifts his head for direction, then freezes, then steps forward into nothing. A ranch hand grabs him and vanishes too. Grant runs to the horse barn with his chin tucked. Heavy steps move above the loft, too deep for boots. A voice outside imitates the wildlife biologist, begging him to open the door while repeating the warning in perfect rhythm. The voice laughs in stacked tones. Grant climbs into the root cellar and pulls the hatch shut. Above him, the heavy steps pause over the boards as the warning shifts from the yard into his skull. Morning arrives with brittle light. The power returns without a reset. Grant climbs out of the root cellar. The ranch is wrong in a quiet way. Vehicles that filled the yard are gone. Footprints that should crisscross the dirt are missing. Even the barn dust looks undisturbed. Grant drives to the sheriff office. The building is open but half lit. Fewer deputies remain than there should be. They confirm what Grant already senses. More people are missing. Some vanished near vehicles. Some vanished inside their own homes. In several places, a radio was found playing the warning on a loop. Search teams return to the ledge. The Ford is there again, exactly placed. The writing still coats the windshield. The letters look deeper now, more like an etch than ink. They find the missing truck owner inside his own vehicle miles away. Causes cardiac arrest. His eyes are open and fixed upward. The wildlife biologist is still missing. Her phone logs show offline for days. Yet Grant remembers her voice at night, close and clear. A quiet visitor arrives in a plain vehicle with government plates. No full name, no badges shown long. He speaks with the sheriff office in a closed room, then asks to speak to Grant alone. He shows a file worn at the corners. Cases across decades, different counties, same pattern. Doors open, keys in place, radios warning, headlights aimed upward. He speaks about observation. He uses careful language. The entities exist in a quantum state. They become more real when observed. Attention collapses them into solidity. Observation is fuel. Vehicles act as conduits. Radios pull ears, headlights pull eyes. The beam into the sky forces a choice. Grant asks what happens when someone looks. The visitor says geometry loosens. Time slips. The sky becomes a doorway that only opens when watched. Grant thinks of his ceiling seam bending. He thinks of the volunteer who took one step and then no second step. The visitor warns Grant to reduce observation. Curtains closed, no mirrors facing windows, no porch lights, no reflective metal left outside. Grant returns home before dusk. The ranch feels too exposed. The horizon line feels too sharp. That night, the hum begins earlier. It rises from the north, from the direction of the Broken Tooth Ridge. Grant stays inside with every curtain drawn. He sits on the floor away from windows. He keeps his gaze on the wood planks. Then the radio turns on by itself. The voice is not calm anymore. It is softer, closer, intimate. Grant does not own that radio. The warning repeats, but now it sounds like an invitation. Do not look up at the sky. Something knocks once on the roof. Not a branch, not hail. A single heavy touch as if testing. The ceiling seam above Grant bends again, deeper this time. The boards do not creak. They simply shift, as if the room is being remeasured. Grant crawls toward the hallway, eyes down, hand feeling the floor. The hum thickens until it feels like pressure on his teeth. A line of light appears under the front door, too bright, too clean. It widens as if the door is opening. Grant keeps his eyes on the baseboard. He speaks to himself to stay anchored. Then his shadow moves the wrong way. It stretches upward along the wall, climbing toward the ceiling while Grant stays low. The last thing Grant hears is his own voice from the porch, perfectly imitated, repeating the warning with calm patience. Do not look up at the sky. After that night, the ranch sits dark and silent. The curtains are either all shut tight or all pulled open, depending on who you ask. Some say Grant left without a trace. Some say he is still inside, sitting on the floor with his eyes down. Nobody is willing to stand in the yard long enough to find out. What do you think happened to Grant? Comment your theory, then like and subscribe for the next report. In Washington, D.C., Charlotte receives a sealed file marked Human Trials. The footage shows an alien standing beside a crashed UFO. The next page lists Charlotte as the new clearance holder. Charlotte works inside a quiet federal office. She audits black budget programs and writes compliance summaries. She believes paperwork cannot hide reality forever. The file begins with October 3rd, 2024. A UFO loses control above the Nevada desert. It falls fast and silent near Area 51. A lone alien exits the wrecked craft. It staggers on thin legs and scans the dark horizon. A patrol spotlight finds it before it can run. Recovery teams arrive within minutes. They seal the sand with floodlights. They sweep for debris and footprints. The UFO lies half buried and smoking. The alien stands near the torn hull. It sways, then steadies. It does not run. It watches the perimeter lights. Its eyes track each moving person. A patrol spotlight pins the alien. The alien freezes. A handler shouts simple commands. The alien tilts its head, almost curious. The first shot is not a bullet. It is a net. The net hits and tightens. The alien falls without a sound. No scream, no struggle. They move fast after that. A sealed stretcher rolls in. The alien is wrapped and locked. The stretcher is tagged as equipment. Engineers cut free major UFO panels. They label each piece. They pack them into foam crates. The crates are loaded under canvas. The convoy leaves before dawn. Trucks travel without headlights. Radios use coded bursts. Every mile marker is logged by hand. The craft enters a hangar below the runway. The doors close without echoes. The alien enters a white lab corridor. Initial tests begin immediately. Scanners sweep bone and tissue. Blood is drawn with robotic arms. Neural probes map unfamiliar rhythms. Engineers study the UFO core. They remove plates and fasteners. Some parts refuse to separate. Some parts feel warm and alive. Charlotte reads the earliest logs in DC. She sees the same line often. Subject shows no resistance. Subject maintains steady gaze. She flags that detail and requests raw footage. She wants uncut time codes. She wants badge scans and door logs. The first files arrive with gaps. Cameras jump forward without alerts. Badge scans repeat in perfect loops. Charlotte feels a cold certainty. She requests a field visit. The approval arrives too fast. It arrives within 1 hour. She books a flight that same morning. Charlotte enters the facility as an observer. She signs forms she cannot copy. She walks through doors with no labels. The air smells like metal. She watches the alien through thick glass. Its skin reflects light with wet sheen. Its chest rises with slow precision. Its eyes never blink. Staff speaks softly near the room. They repeat the same phrases daily. They forget questions after answering. They move like synchronized clocks. Charlotte reviews the experiment schedule. Every test is harsh and exact, yet every change favors the alien. Sedatives are reduced too soon. The alien sits upright by week 2. It lifts its arms with ease. By week 3, its vitals look normal. The staff call it recovery. Charlotte calls it acceleration. She compares lab notes across days. A missing line returns in another file. The handwriting does not match. She visits the hangar next. The UFO looks less damaged now. Weld lines vanish between frames. Cracks appear smooth by morning. Engineers claim they repaired it. Their work orders lack tool lists. Their diagrams repeat strange symbols. Nobody can explain the shapes. Charlotte tests the staff with small questions. She asks who approved the new plan. 3 people answer the same sentence. She asks why the alien never resists. A guard says it is cooperative. Charlotte watches the guard blink twice, then smile. She asks for one change. She wants the alien left alone. The request is approved fast. It is approved within 1 hour. That night, power dips for 8 seconds. Monitors turn white across the wing. When video returns, the alien is standing. No door opens during the white gap. No alarm triggers. No guard moves on camera. The alien is simply closer to the glass. Charlotte feels pressure behind her eyes. A thought arrives without sound. It asks her about control and direction. She writes one word in her notebook: influence. Her pen scratches too hard. She does not look away from the glass. After that night, the facility mood curdles. The hangar shifts into constant work, but the people doing it look worse each day. Engineers arrive early and leave late, yet their faces slacken. Conversations shrink into mutters. Tempers flare over small mistakes. Coffee cups stack up. Someone cries in a stairwell and claims it is allergies. Charlotte watches the symbols spread anyway. Not as neat rituals, but as absent-minded scribbles. The shapes appear on napkins, on whiteboards, on the edges of reports. They show up in the margins of her own drafts, even when she is sure she did not draw them. Nobody argues about what they mean anymore. People only say they cannot sleep. The UFO hum returns at irregular hours, low and clean, and it makes everyone irritable. Tools vibrate on benches. A metal tray creeps a few inches across a table. Fluorescent lights flicker, then stay dimmer than before. The hangar air feels heavier near the craft, like pressure at depth. Charlotte realizes the control is already in place. It is not marching orders, it is erosion. Attention pulled, mood dragged down, thinking narrowed, until people choose the same path because the alternatives feel exhausting. She sees it in meetings, in the way questions die on tongues, in the way everyone stops looking directly at the craft, yet keeps working on it. Observation windows extended, security rotations thinned. The official reason is efficiency. The real effect is access. Inside the lab, the alien walks now. It moves with slow economy and touches walls as if reading them. It pauses at corners, then turns its head as if listening to signals inside the building. The staff around it look hollowed out, more tired than afraid, as if their fear has been used up. Charlotte catches the truth before the next white screen. The craft is not being repaired by human insight. Humans are being guided into repairing it. The alien does not need to force them. It only needs to keep them worn down and focused. That same night, the sky changes early. Over the desert beyond the facility, lights appear high and steady. Not one matches any known aircraft. They arrive in groups and hold perfect positions. The hangar cameras catch their reflections on the UFO skin, sliding like cold stars across wet metal. Alarms should rise. Instead, the building sinks into a deeper quiet. People stop talking. Some sit down where they stand. A guard stares at a blank wall and breathes through his mouth. Charlotte walks into the hangar and stands close enough to feel the hum in her bones. The UFO surface looks seamless now, almost alive, and the symbols on the floor seem to point toward her shoes. A shadow touches her shoulder before she hears a step. She turns and sees the alien behind her, closer than the glass should allow. Its eyes hold her with calm precision. A long finger presses lightly against her forearm. The contact is cold, then warm, then numb. Charlotte cannot move at first. The hum drops out. In the silence, her pulse sounds loud and wrong. The alien does not speak aloud. Meaning arrives anyway, heavy and intimate, as if placed inside her body. The lights above the facility hold their formation, waiting. After that week, Charlotte is back in DC and looks almost normal. She stands at windows without blinking and rubs the spot on her forearm. Her phone fills with upward static photos she does not remember taking. When the city sky flickers with distant lights, her face goes blank. Share your theory below, then hit like and subscribe so you do not miss the next report.